Chapter 49:25. Everyone's eyes landed on Lin Yi, and Zhang Zili reacted quickly. She glared at Lin Yi with murderous intent. "Was it you? Kid, do you want to die?" As soon as Zhang Zili finished speaking, she was about to kill him. At this time, the president suddenly stood in front of her and said in a tone that was neither servile nor overbearing, "Grandmaster Zhang, please calm down. I will definitely give you a satisfactory explanation for this matter. However, if you make a move here, I'm afraid it's against the rules. This is the exclusive land of the Golden Division School Alliance. Only the Alliance can deal with this. No school or person is allowed to interfere, or the Alliance, where does the authority of the Alliance, will be—" Lin Yi nodded to himself as he listened. He didn't know this guild leader well, and didn't even know his name. He'd only heard him speak once before, but from what he'd said, he wasn't an unreasonable person. Compared to Zhang Zili and the guard captain, he was at least a reasonable person. Against the rules? Zhang Zili glared at the guild master unhappily before turning back to Lin Yi with a murderous look. "Breaking the rules? What if I have to kill him today?" The union president's expression changed slightly. If Zhang Zili dared to speak to him like this under normal circumstances, he would have already turned hostile on the spot. But this time, the matter was too important. He could only swallow his anger and say, "Grandmaster Zhang, I'll say it again. This is the exclusive territory of the academic union. Please do not make things difficult for me." Zhang Zili gave him a long look and smiled coldly. "Very well then, the Alliance, the authority of the Alliance, is not to be offended. If that's the case, I'll be taking my ting to heal. Find someone else." With that, Zhang Zili picked up the smoking chong lading and got up to leave. "Wait." The headmaster's face changed again and again. After a moment of consideration, he gritted his teeth. "Since it's your son who's injured, then this is Master Zhang's family business. I don't care anymore." Xinyan and the others' hearts sank at the words, and they couldn't help but turn to Lin Yi worriedly. Even the head of the Alliance had chosen to back down in front of a woman like Zhang Zili. Didn't that mean they were doomed? Very well. The headmaster is a sensible person. Zhang Zili glanced at the Alliance leader with a smug expression before carefully putting down chong lading. He turned to Lin Yi with a savage expression. "Kid, how dare you attack my ting? You can die now." As he spoke, Zhang Zili's entire body released a fierce and sharp aura. His strength was without a doubt. He was actually an early mountain opening stage magnate. Xinyan and the others jumped in fright. They'd just gotten out of the wolf's den and into the tiger's lair. It was a dangerous situation when they were blocked by the Alliance's guards, but these people were only here to capture Lin Yi. This Zhang Zili, on the other hand, was trying to kill Lin Yi, and he was an early phase practitioner. If they'd fallen into the hands of the Alliance, at least Morning Star Academy would have intervened. At least their lives wouldn't be in danger. But this Zhang Zili was obviously going to kill him to vent her anger. Lin Yi would be dead if he fell into her hands. But in contrast to the shocked Xinyan and the others, Lin Yi wasn't scared at all. In fact, he was even feeling a little excited as he looked at Zhang Zili calmly. Zhang Zili was an elixir refiner. Even when she fought, she had the aura of an elixir refiner. This meant that her combat ability was much weaker than a practitioner of the same level. Even if she was an early stage magnate, she was still the weakest of them all. After all, there was only one non-mainstream elixir refiner like Lin who treated elixir refinement as a sideline. Most elixir refiners were synonymous with weak strength. Zhang Liju, the legendary elixir god, was an exception. Unfortunately, this was Zhang Zili, not Zhang Liju. Before this, Lin Yi could only run away when facing a magnate of the Alliance, but now that he'd advanced to the early stage of the Alliance, he no longer had the fear of facing a magnate of the Alliance, especially when facing Zhang Zili, who was the weakest of the Alliance. Lin Yi's heart was stirred. The Thousand Thunder explosion he just used to kill two mystical late-stage masters was something that even Zhang Zili couldn't do. This opening period trash that popped up out of nowhere was a free sparring partner for Lin Yi, who'd had a huge increase in strength recently. Seeing that Lin Yi was still so calm and collected, everyone started discussing again. Even the Union's master revealed a surprised expression. He'd never looked Lin Yi in the eye before, but a mere early-stage magnate of the Alliance, facing Zhang Zili, and still being so calm. This kid didn't look simple at all. Zhang Zili's smile became even colder. She didn't care what kind of background and confidence Lin Yi had. She only knew that Lin Yi had beaten her precious son half to death. Just based on this, Lin Yi had to die. But before Zhang Zili could make a move, Lin Yi suddenly called out, "Wait! Humph, kid, it's too late for you to beg for mercy now. Since you hurt my Ting, you have to pay the corresponding price. And that price is death." Zhang Zili said coldly. For this kind of unreasonable woman, Lin Yi didn't even have the interest to look at her, let alone waste his saliva talking nonsense with her. Instead, he turned to the Union's master and said indifferently, "From what you're saying, the Union's master doesn't plan to intervene, right?" "That's right. Although this is the territory of the Alliance of Academies, this is a private matter between you two. As the Union's master, there's no need for me to intervene." The Union's master paused for a moment, his eyes filled with regret and self-mockery. "Besides, Master Zhang isn't a member of our alliance, but a distinguished guest that we specially invited to help refine pills. Since it's her family's matter, I won't interfere." Hearing this, the expressions of everyone present couldn't help but become a little strange. The Golden Alliance was an official power in the Golden Sea region, especially since this was the Thunderous Plain Island, a place exclusive to the Alliance. If it were anyone else, they would have been trampled by the guards until not even dregs remained. Zhang Zili was, after all, the chief alchemist of the Tripod City Academy. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that she was the #1 alchemist in the Yellow Steppe Sea region. Her status was extraordinary, and even the Yellow Steppe Academy Alliance had to treat her with respect. She might need someone's help in the future, just like now. Chapter 49-26. Hee, I think you've misunderstood. Lin Yi smiled indifferently and continued to look at the Alliance leader. What I mean is, even if I kill her here today, I don't have to take responsibility, right? The Alliance leader was stunned and couldn't react for a moment. Everyone looked at each other. Although Lin Yi's words were easy to understand, facing a mountain-opening stage giant like Zhang Zili, no matter how powerful he was, wasn't it a bit too much to say such words in public? Could it be that this person's brain was broken? Without waiting for the Alliance leader to speak, Zhang Zili laughed wildly, as if he had heard the funniest joke in the world. He looked at Lin Yi mockingly and said, "Ha ha, no wonder you dared to attack my Ting. Your tone is shockingly arrogant. I can clearly tell you that if you are able to kill me today, nothing will happen to you. However, if you are unable to kill me, I will let you have a good taste of a fate worse than death." "Very good. I'm relieved to hear that," Lin Yi said as he stretched out his right arm. Electric arcs danced wildly on it, and his aura was released in an instant. "So you're a lightning element cultivator. No wonder you dare to be so arrogant." Seeing this, Zhang Zili's expression changed slightly. The thunder attribute was an extremely rare mutated spirit root attribute. Because of the special nature of the power of thunder and lightning, thunder attribute cultivators were synonymous with powerful and domineering almost at all times. Ordinary cultivators could not compete with them at all. If Lin Yi was not at the early stage of mysterious ascension, but at the profound ascension great perfection, Zhang Zili might have to take the initiative to retreat, because she, who was the weakest mountain opening stage, had no chance of winning against a lightning element profound ascension great perfection expert. But now, he was just a profound ascension great perfection expert. The difference in strength was enough to crush everything. Then let me experience the strength of a mountain opening stage giant today. As Lin Yi spoke, the electric arcs on his fingertips suddenly grew into a terrifying dark blue lightning pillar. It was the newly developed Thousand Thunder Explosion. In the blink of an eye, the Thousand Thunder Explosion smashed towards Zhang Zili at a speed beyond the limits of the naked eye. The distance between them was only a few feet. Basically, the moment the Thousand Thunder Explosion appeared, it had already hit Zhang Zili's face. However, Zhang Zili reacted in time. At the end of the day, she was still at the initial phase of the mountain. Even if she wasn't good at fighting, she was still a giant-level master. Zhang Zili's reaction speed wasn't something that the crowd around her, who were at most at the initial phase of the profound ascension realm, could compare to. Plus, she wasn't an idiot. After discovering that he was a lightning element practitioner, she was already on her guard. As everyone knew, the most troublesome thing about thunder element cultivators was not their super destructive power, but the extreme speed of their thunder and lightning. Basically, as soon as they attacked, the thunder and lightning would directly hit their opponent. Even the most basic evasion was an extravagant hope. In this case, when facing lightning element cultivators, it was necessary to make accurate predictions in advance because no one could rely purely on temporary reactions to avoid lightning. Otherwise, no matter how strong they would only become a lightning target. Although Zhang Zili was not good at fighting, she was still a mountain opening stage giant after all. She still knew this most basic concept, so long before Lin Yi raised his hand, she had already reacted. In the face of the fierce Thousand Thunder Explosion, Zhang Zili did not have the slightest intention of retreating. She was a mountain opening stage giant. How could she take the initiative to retreat in front of a mere profound ascending stage? Wouldn't that be a joke? Zhang Zili put her hands together. And before the Thousand Thunder Explosion got close, she suddenly pushed out a super fireball. The color was not the common dark red or dark red, but extremely dazzling white. Boom! An earth-shattering explosion rang out. The Thousand Thunder Explosion and the white fireball were actually evenly matched. The aftermath of the collision forcefully sent the surrounding nascent soul stage experts flying. Only the early profound ascension stage experts were still able to stabilize their bodies, but it was very difficult. White flames. Lin Yi couldn't help but frown when he saw this. This meant that the temperature of Zhang Zili's flame was far higher than his own alchemy fire. As expected of an early mountain opening stage alchemist, even if he wasn't good at other things when it came to playing with fire, an ordinary giant realm expert of the same level couldn't compare to Zhang Zili. As the temperature of the pill fire increased, its color would also constantly change, from the initial red to orange and then to gold. As for Zhang Zili's white fireball, its temperature was far above that of the gold, and its power was not to be underestimated. Looks like I've underestimated this woman. No matter what, she's still a mountain opening realm expert. If I'm not careful, I might die. Lin Yi's heart skipped a beat. Fortunately, his opponent wasn't good at fighting. If this white flame wasn't a normal fireball but a strong fire element skill, his Thousand Thunder Explosion wouldn't have been able to withstand it, and he would have been in big trouble. Lin Yi was secretly shocked. At this time, Zhang Zili was actually more shocked than him. This woman was not as arrogant and ignorant as she appeared to be. She was well aware of her own strength. The white fireball just now couldn't deal with masters of the same level, but it had always been successful in killing profound ascending stage experts. How could it be evenly matched with the opponent? Although it couldn't be seen on the surface, Zhang Zili suddenly panicked a little. As an alchemist, she didn't have any powerful martial skills, and her ability to adapt on the spot was even worse. The only thing she could rely on was the huge gap in strength to crush the opponent head-on. There was no other way. But if she couldn't crush the opponent, what could she do? Kid, you have some strength. If that's the case, then I can't let you go today. Zhang Zili's expression was cold and ruthless. The stronger the opponent was, the more she had to eliminate him. Now, he was only at the early profound ascending stage, and he could fight her head-on. Once he grew up in the future, it would be terrible. Is that so? Then I really have to open my eyes and see clearly. The so-called mountain opening stage giant is only SOSO. Lin Yi smiled coldly. As soon as his voice fell, his figure suddenly flashed, and he appeared in front of Zhang Zili in the blink of an eye like a ghost. After all, he was facing a mountain opening stage giant. This time, he did not hesitate to use the extreme butterfly subtle steps just to catch him off guard. Zhang Zili originally wanted to say a few harsh words, but she quickly swallowed them back. She, a mountain opening stage giant, was actually shocked by the speed displayed by Lin Yi at the moment. Her first reaction was not to face the enemy head-on, but to retreat. Chapter 49:27. If it was any other early-stage mountain opening realm master, when faced with Lin Yi's sudden attack, they would definitely not retreat half a step. They would definitely use their absolute strength to suppress Lin Yi head-on, and then slowly crush him to death. How could they retreat so easily and be thrown into confusion? However, Zhang Zili was not an idiot. After subconsciously retreating for a moment, she quickly reacted. Retreating like this would only increase the opponent's arrogance and make the opponent stronger. After a long time, she might really fail miserably. You're looking for death. Zhang Zili's palms once again condensed white flames. As she opened and closed them, they formed a long stream of fire. She wanted to take advantage of the situation and kill the approaching Lin Yi. Unfortunately, before she could make a move, Lin Yi had already flashed to the other side like a ghost. Ignoring absolute strength in terms of battle awareness, even 100 Zhang Zili would not be Lin Yi's opponent. Her every move was within Lin Yi's expectations. Zhang Zili's attack missed and instantly revealed a small opening. However, Lin Yi did not take advantage of the situation to use the 1,000 thunder explosions. If he used the same move too many times, it would be easy for the opponent to figure it out. Moreover, it was rare for him to encounter such a weak early-stage mountain opening realm martial artist. Of course, he had to take advantage of this opportunity to test it out. In the past, Chang Lading was simply too weak. At the very most, he was only able to test out the 4 elemental martial techniques before he could no longer hold on. Since his son was useless, then it was his mother's turn. She was a good opponent that had delivered herself to his doorstep. With a dragon's roar, Lin Yi's trump card, the killing aura of the 5 elements, finally showed itself. After all, the opponent was a giant of the opening mountain stage, and it'd be looking down on him if he used a 4-element skill. The killing aura of the 5 elements was just the beginning. Moreover, this was not a normal 5 elements killing aura. Zhang Zili didn't have much battle awareness, but he had good eyesight. He could tell with one look that this killing aura of the 5 elements wasn't something to be underestimated. Even if it didn't look as frightening as the 1,000 lightning explosions, it was definitely more profound than the 1,000 lightning explosions. Insignificant skill. Although he said so, Zhang Zili did not dare to be negligent in the slightest. he hurriedly sent a white fireball to meet the murderous aura of the five elements. When the two collided head-on, everyone thought that there would be a loud bang like at the beginning, but unexpectedly, Lin Yi's five-element murderous aura did not even make a fart movement and was directly crushed by the opponent's white fireball. From the start to the end, he did not even expend the slightest bit of energy, let alone fight on par with his opponent like he did with the 1,000 lightning burst earlier. Everyone in the surroundings couldn't help but be taken aback. After the two spectacular confrontations from before, they had subconsciously regarded Lin Yi as a tyrannical figure that could rival Zhang Zili. After all, from these two confrontations, he didn't seem to be at a disadvantage at all. Instead, he was leading Zhang Zili by the nose. But this time, the gap in strength between the two sides was immediately exposed. This merciless Bei Dao might barely be able to exchange one or two moves with Zhang Zili, but any more than that would be impossible. After all, he was only at the early stage of mysterious ascension. Ha 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 ha, I thought you were strong, but it turns out that you're just a good-looking but useless embroidered pillow. You're exhausted so quickly, I haven't even warmed up yet. Zhang Zili sneered proudly. However, what she didn't realize was that at this moment the Alliance Master and the Alliance Guard team's mountain opening stage experts suddenly revealed a mocking expression when they heard her words. This woman still hasn't realized the danger until now. A dignified mountain opening stage giant is actually so slow, it's really sad to a certain extent. Hee hee, as you wish, now we can warm up to our heart's content. Linny smiled faintly. What did you say? Only at this moment did Zhang Zili suddenly feel that something was wrong. Before she could react, hundreds of five-element murderous auras suddenly appeared in all directions. Listening to the endless dragon roars, Zhang Zili's expression suddenly changed. It turned out that the five-element murderous aura just now was not destroyed at all. It was purely a cover. It was ridiculous that she thought that this was the opponent's full strength. Let's begin. Let me see how you warm up. Lin Yi calmly snapped his fingers, and the five-element murderous auras surrounding Zhang Zili all launched attacks at the same time. The bystanders couldn't even see Zhang Zili's shadow. They could only see the densely packed five-element murderous auras drowning her. The scene could be described as shocking. Zhang Zili instantly became flustered. Even if she temporarily condensed the strongest white flame, it could only lock onto a few of the five-element murderous auras in an area. It was simply unrealistic to want to destroy all of the five-element murderous auras in one go. What she could do now was to quickly open up a gap and then break out from it. Lin Yi didn't take the opportunity to attack again. It wasn't that he was intentionally going easy on her. It was mainly because the move just now had used up all the qi in his body. At this moment, he could only take the opportunity to use the jade pendant to quickly replenish his qi while carefully observing the situation in front of him, preparing for the next move. This is a phantom. After Zhang Zili fled for a moment, she finally realized that something was wrong. Not all of the five-element murderous auras were real. Most of them were just for show. A mere appearance actually deceived a mountain opening stage powerhouse like her. Zhang Zili immediately gritted her teeth in anger. She was clearly played by this kid in public. The leaders of the Alliance and the mountain opening stage powerhouses shook their heads again. Although this woman was an alchemist, it was understandable that her strength was weaker than the powerhouses of the same level. However, the combat ability of a dignified mountain opening stage powerhouse was actually so poor, it really made people speechless. Most of them could see at a glance that 99% of the five-element murderous auras in Lin Yi's move were just missed without any attack power. No matter how realistic the disguise was, if one's insight was strong enough, they would eventually be able to see through the flaws. What's more, Even if they couldn't see through it at once, they could infer with the most basic logic. It was impossible for so many five-element murderous auras to be real, because with the strength of the five-element murderous auras, a normal early-stage, profound, ascending stage powerhouse could only use 5 or 6 of them, but there were hundreds of them in front of them. Even if it was Zhang Zili, she would be played around by Lin Yi's simple move of the five-element murderous aura. If it was any other mountain opening stage powerhouse present, it would be difficult for this move to have any effect at all. Chapter 49-28. Looking at Zhang Zili, whose aura was in a mess, Lin Yi couldn't help but feel pity. He unleashed the five elements killing aura again, not giving his opponent any chance to catch her breath. This time, it was still the five elements killing aura, but on top of that, Lin Yi added another attribute, the ice attribute. With that, the five elements, plus the 2 elements of ice and mist, was an unprecedented 7-element skill. This meant that other than the strongest element in his body, the lightning element, Lin Yi had successfully combined all the other elements into one. It was a miracle to be able to do this in such a short amount of time. Of course, this was also because he had the foundation of the 5 elements killing qi. He could easily merge the 5 elements together. After that, the mist and ice attributes were only a step further on this foundation. Imperceptibly, the difficulty was much lower. Otherwise, not to mention a 7-element martial skill, just combining a 5-element martial skill was already a headache. Humph, you're out of tricks already? You're using the same move again? You think I'm an idiot? Zhang Zili didn't notice the difference in the 5 elements killing aura this time, and continued to mock Lin Yi shamelessly. Unsurprisingly, her stupid reaction, which had no self-awareness, was once again looked down upon mercilessly by the mountain opening stage masters of the Alliance. At this moment, everyone was thinking the same question. How could such a stupid woman have such high attainments in the Tao of alchemy? Could it be that her intelligence and wisdom were all concentrated on alchemy, and she was a complete idiot in other aspects? You really are an idiot. Lin Yi said what everyone was thinking. You. Zhang Zili gritted her teeth in anger, but it was a pity that she was once again surrounded by hundreds of murderous auras of the 5 elements. There was no way she could free her hands to deal with Lin Yi. Even if 99% of the murderous auras were harmless, she still had to be careful. If the murderous auras of the 5 elements took advantage of the chaos and locked onto her vitals, it would be a disaster. With the previous experience, Zhang Zili's response this time was much more relaxed. She first used the white fireball that she was best at to blast open the encirclement, and then she evaded and circled around. This was the dumbest way to deal with it, but it was not completely ineffective. Just from this point alone, using the same move a second time would be much less effective. It was a pity that Zhang Zili didn't realize that the 5 elements murderous aura, haze, this time carried the ice attribute. Of course, if any ice attribute martial skill was used alone, it would be completely suppressed by her white fireball. It would be almost impossible for it to have any effect. However, when the ice attribute merged with the killing intent of the 5 elements, this absolute suppression no longer existed. Instead, the ice attribute was able to display its effects when she continuously fought with it. This effect was the freezing effect. Although it couldn't completely freeze Zhang Zili, her speed was obviously slowed down. But that was enough. Zhang Zili quickly became flustered, and he was exhausted from dealing with them. When facing the encirclement and obstruction of over 100 strands of 5-element killing intent, various large and small flaws emerged one after another, and the scene could be said to be filled with danger. The spectators in the distance were all dumbfounded. A profound ascending stage expert actually bullied a mountain opening stage expert to such an extent. Was the script written wrong? Boom. Zhang Zili's weak combat accomplishment determined that she couldn't cope with this kind of predicament at all. The substantial killing intent of the 5 elements mixed in the fog finally took the opportunity to attack, hitting several vital parts of her body. Even if she was a mountain opening stage expert, she would be seriously injured by such an attack at once. Hearing this movement, everyone's heart jumped at the same time. Even if they saw everything clearly just now, they still felt incredible when they saw Zhang Zili being bombarded into the dust at this time. They looked at Lin Yi as if they were looking at a monster. This guy could even suppress a mountain opening stage expert. When did such a heaven-defying person appear in the North Island? However, Lin Yi's expression didn't show any sign of relaxing. Instead, his eyebrows tightened at this moment. Sure enough, just a moment later, Zhang Zili suddenly rushed out of the dust with a ferocious look. Her whole body was wrapped in a thin layer of white flame, and she madly rushed toward Lin Yi. Lin Yi shook his head secretly as he retreated. A mountain opening stage expert was really not easy to deal with. Even Zhang Zili, who was the weakest mountain opening stage expert without any combat awareness, was still not a trivial matter. The attack, just now, didn't seriously injure Zhang Zili. Seeing that she was unscathed at the moment and was wrapped in a layer of white flame, it could be inferred that it must be this thing that blocked the killing intent of the 5 elements. No matter how weak Zhang Zili was, at least she still had this life-saving trump card. Before this, from the beginning to the end, Lin Yi had been suppressing Zhang Zili in various ways, but from this moment on, the situation was suddenly completely reversed. On the contrary, Zhang Zili began to chase madly, and Lin Yi could only be chased by her. Fortunately, the extreme butterfly microstep was fast enough. Otherwise, the one who suffered a big loss at this time would be Lin Yi. At this point, the result was already obvious. 7-attribute martial arts was not enough to deal with Zhang Zili. It seemed that only 8-attribute martial arts was possible. Unfortunately, the thunder attribute in Lin Yi's body was too powerful. This certainly brought him great benefits, but at the same time, there was also a big drawback, which was that it increased the difficulty of fusing it with the other 7 attributes. If Lin Yi was given a month with his comprehension, it was enough to figure out the strongest version of 8-attribute martial arts, which might be more than enough to deal with Zhang Zili. But how could he have this opportunity now, let alone a month? Zhang Zili could not even give him the time of a stick of incense. In front of so many people, he was suppressed by a mere mysterious ascendant early stage expert. Zhang Zili, the mountain opening stage expert, had long lost his face. At this moment, he was completely furious. He desperately wanted to tear Lin Yi into pieces. Otherwise, it would be difficult to dispel the hatred in his heart. Humph, boy, if you have any tricks, just use them. Why? Are you at your wits' end this time? Zhang Zili laughed coldly as he chased after Lin Yi. It doesn't matter how many tricks you have up your sleeves, the difference in strength is right here. You will die today. No one can save you. This time, Lin Yi did not answer. He just buried his head and fled everywhere, giving people the feeling that he was really at his wits' end, and the situation had become dangerous. Chapter 49-29. Huang Xiaodao's heart was burning with anxiety. She saw that Lin Yi's dodging was getting more and more difficult, and she couldn't help but want to help. She didn't care if the opponent was a master of the mountain opening stage or not. As long as they did harm to Lin Yi, they would be her mortal enemy. But Wang Xinyan quietly pulled her back, shook her head, and whispered, "Watch carefully, we can't interfere in a battle of this level." But Huang Xiaotao understood this. As well, they wouldn't be able to help Zhang Zili if they interfered with their current strength, and they might even drag Lin Yi down. Even so, they couldn't just stand by and watch, could they? Were they just going to watch Lin Yi fall into a hopeless situation like this? He never does things he's not confident in. Since he said that, it means that he won't lose. At least he won't be at a disadvantage. Let's open our eyes and watch. Wang Xinyan smiled and shook her head. She knew Lin Yi too well. If Lin Yi didn't have this confidence, he wouldn't have attacked Zhang Zili just now. He would definitely think of a way to use the Morning Star Academy's name to solve this problem as much as possible. Really? Huang Xiaotao was still a little worried, but she didn't have any intention of interfering. Since Wang Xinyan trusted Lin Yi so much, she had no reason not to. While the two girls were talking, it was unknown whether it was because Zhang Zili was getting faster and faster or because Lin Yi was getting slower and slower, but the situation became more and more dangerous. Lin Yi narrowly avoided the white fireballs a few times, causing the surrounding people to exclaim. Everyone knew that this white fireball was not to be underestimated. Once touched by it, it wouldn't just be a problem of getting injured, the whole person might turn into ashes. Zhang Zili was a mountain opening stage powerhouse after all, and this was not a joke. What's this kid doing? Others couldn't see it, but the leader of the alliance could clearly see that Lin Yi wasn't as passive as he seemed on the surface. He seemed to be preparing for something. He should be exhausted. After all, he's only at the early stage of the mysterious ascension realm. No matter how strong he is, the true qi in his body is a shortcoming that he can't overcome. The guard captain at the middle stage of the mountain opening realm frowned. The surrounding mountain opening stage giants also nodded. Today's battle was an eye-opener for them. They had never seen such a powerful early stage mystical ascendant master. But even so, none of them were optimistic about Lin Yi's chances. To be honest, Lin Yi had used so many powerful moves in succession, but he still had the strength to dodge, which was already beyond their expectations. If it was an ordinary early-stage profound ascension expert, not to mention continuing to deal with Zhang Zili, he would have long exhausted his qi and died of exhaustion. Maybe, but I have a feeling that this kid is not that simple. The Alliance Master shook his head thoughtfully. His strength was far above everyone else's, so he was naturally able to see things more thoroughly than everyone else. However, he really couldn't think of any backup plan that Lin Yi could have left behind. This was indeed illogical. Kid, you're about to die of exhaustion, right? Ha, I've just finished warming up. Today, I'll let you have a good taste of despair. I'll burn you into ashes bit by bit. Zhang Zili laughed like a crazy woman. As she spoke, she finally found a flaw in Lin Yi. Two blazing white flames instantly stuck to Lin Yi, surrounding him from all directions. All of a sudden, all of his escape routes were blocked. Wang Xinyan and Huang Xiaotao's expressions changed at the same time. They believed in Lin Yi, but the situation was too dangerous. The two girls almost wanted to attack at the same time. However, at this moment, Lin Yi, who was trapped in the middle of the white flames, smiled instead. There was no panic in his tone, and he still seemed calm and composed. That's such a coincidence. I've just finished warming up, so I can start to get serious. You're still so stubborn even when you're about to die. Die. Zhang Zili didn't believe Lin Yi's bullshit at all. Under her control, the white flames pressed down on Lin Yi from all directions, drowning him in a sea of white flames. Lin Yi didn't even look at it. He suddenly raised his hands and shouted, "Thunder Burial! Thunder Burial!" Everyone present, including the Union Master, was shocked when they heard this name. They all looked at each other in confusion. The Thunder Burial was a specialty of Thunderous Plains Island. However, the sky was clear and boundless. Where was the slightest sign of a thunder burial? Ha 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 ha, acting all mysterious and boasting shamelessly. You think someone like you can get a thunder burial? You're not that strong, but you sure know how to bluff. Zhang Zili laughed coldly. However, before she could finish laughing, the originally cloudless sky suddenly surged with winds and clouds. Following that, a gigantic pillar of lightning that was comparable to the weight of 10 people came crashing down. The previous 1,000 thunder explosions was only dark blue, but this time, the gigantic pillar of lightning was shockingly tinged with a faint purple color. Zhang Zili didn't even have a chance to react. She was hit on the spot. It was also a lightning-type killer move. If the previous 1,000 thunderbolts explosion was said to be shocking, then the thunder burial that descended from the sky, this time completely stunned everyone present. Even the Alliance leader and the mountain opening stage powerhouses were shocked and speechless for a long time. In front of the power of the thunder burial pillar, Zhang Zili's white flames didn't have the slightest resistance. Just the aftermath of the thunder burial easily flattened it. Even Lin Yi was sent flying. This is a thunder burial. After the guild leader regained his senses, his face instantly turned green. He had been watching the show from the sidelines. When he saw Zhang Zili being defeated by Lin Yi, he even felt secretly happy. After all, this woman was really annoying. If he didn't need her help, how could he, the guild leader, be so humble? But although he was secretly happy, the guild leader definitely couldn't let anything happen to Zhang Zili, especially under his watch. Otherwise, if Zhang Zili really fell, who would refine pills for him? Like everyone else, the guild leader still underestimated Lin Yi. Even if Lin Yi had the upper hand at the beginning and forced Zhang Zili into a panic, he still didn't think that Lin Yi could cause any substantial damage to Zhang Zili. No matter how difficult the process was, Zhang Zili would have the last laugh in the end. Chapter 49:30. In reality, before Lin Yi used the thunder burial, the situation was indeed within the president's expectations. That was why he could be so relaxed and not worry about the situation getting out of control. But at this moment, he was dumbfounded. He never would have thought that Lin Yi could actually activate the thunder burial. What was going on? Although thunder element cultivators were very rare, with his experience, it was not like he had never seen one before. In conclusion, they were indeed much stronger than ordinary cultivators. But activating the thunder burial, was this something that a normal person could do? Not to mention a mere early-stage, mysterious ascending realm cultivator. Even a mountain opening stage cultivator who was mainly thunder element couldn't use such a heaven-defying method, right? There was still a glimmer of hope for those legendary thunder element spiritual beasts. But this brat was obviously a human cultivator. The president's eyesight was not so bad that he couldn't even differentiate between a human and a spiritual beast. As suspicious as he was, the guild leader still saw through some clues. He'd felt that something was wrong from the moment Lin Yi kept dodging, and now that he thought about it, it was clear that the kid was using the opportunity to store up a big move. Zhang Zili, that stupid woman, didn't know anything about it at all, and let the guy unleash that shocking lightning burial. After all, he was the strongest person present. What the president guessed was right. Lin Yi did indeed do this. This thunder burial was simply an upgraded version of the Thunder Thousand explosion. However, he used the profound meaning of the vital energy bomb and continuously condensed all the power of thunder in his body to form an ultimate move. One should know that what was hidden in Lin Yi's body was not only his own power of thunder, there was also the powerful electricity left by the purple lightning from the resentful spirit. In addition, Lin Yi's endless vital energy was transformed into the power of thunder. After combining the two, all of it poured out in the form of the vital energy bomb version of the Thunder Thousand explosion. The effect was astonishing. There was no other way. Facing a mountain opening stage cultivator like Zhang Zili, he had to use this almost extreme method. Otherwise, he could only make the opponent embarrassed like before, but not hurt her at all. Of course, If Zhang Zili had been replaced by other giants in the mountain opening stage, Lin Yi probably wouldn't even have the chance to use this ultimate move, let alone defeat his enemy with one move. Unlike the 1,000 Thunderbolt explosion from before, not only was Thunder Burial far more powerful than the 1,000 Thunderbolt explosion, but it also lasted much longer. After Zhang Zili was struck, his entire body was sucked into the air. He twitched and struggled madly, and there were even scalp-numbing howls of pain mixed in. Lin Yi nodded secretly. The life force of a mountain opening stage powerhouse was indeed strong. If it was a profound ascending stage powerhouse, even if it was a profound ascending great perfection stage powerhouse, they wouldn't even be able to withstand the ultimate move of Thunder Burial. They would probably be turned into ashes in the blink of an eye, but Zhang Zili could still show such suffering. At a time like this, suffering was also a form of strength, because those who were not strong enough would not even have the qualifications to endure suffering. At this moment, Lin Yi's eyelids suddenly twitched. He had been paying attention to the alliance leader in the distance. Although this guy said that he wouldn't intervene in the beginning, Lin Yi didn't believe such nonsense. Sure enough, the alliance leader finally couldn't hold back and made a move. However, he wasn't aiming at Lin Yi. Instead, he raised his hand, and a cyan arrow-like force forcefully split Thunder Burial in half. At the same time, the alliance leader's figure flashed. Others felt as if he hadn't moved at all, but there was one more person in his hand. It was Zhang Zili, who was hit by Thunder Burial. So strong. Lin Yi was secretly shocked by this scene. Rumor had it that the alliance leader was a master in the earth opening stage, which was above the mountain opening stage. Now, it seemed that it was true. Otherwise, if he was only in the mountain opening stage, even if he could deal with Thunder Burial, he wouldn't be able to do it so easily, right? But even so, the alliance leader still couldn't save Zhang Zili. At this time, this woman's body was emitting black smoke, and it was unknown whether she was dead or alive. It was exactly the same as the two unlucky Chancellor and Chang Lading. The whole audience was dead silent. Everyone was dumbfounded. If Lin Yi defeating two profound ascending late-stage masters was still within the scope of their understanding, then this scene had completely exceeded the limit of their understanding. A profound ascending early-stage master, crossing a whole realm to defeat a mountain opening stage magnate master. When did the world become so crazy? This was not only unbelievable, but it completely subverted common sense. Not to mention seeing it, they had never even heard of it. Speaking of which, the East Continent itself was a place where geniuses gathered. Geniuses who could challenge above their level were very rare in other Heaven Stage islands, but here there were a lot of them. It was not uncommon for a profound ascending stage master to defeat a mountain opening stage magnate, but those were all well-known profound ascending great perfection stage masters. How could a mere profound ascending early stage do such a thing? Only Wang Xinyan and Huang Xiaotao's expressions were relatively normal. Although they were worried for Lin Yi, they knew that fighting an enemy that was a whole level higher was nothing out of the ordinary for Lin Yi, even though it was shocking to others. But for Lin Yi, it was nothing out of the ordinary. Since he could do it in the past, now that he had become a profound ascending early stage master, defeating a mountain opening stage magnate was not strange at all. Looking at Zhang Zili, whose life and death were unknown, the alliance leader was dumbfounded for a moment. After a moment, his face became gloomy, and he looked at Lin Yi coldly. "Kid, what do you mean by this?" A suffocating pressure followed, and Lin Yi was even more certain of this person's strength. He was indeed not a mountain opening stage magnate, but an earth opening stage master. Nothing. Since she wants to deal with me, naturally, she has to be prepared to be dealt with by me. Lin Yi's expression didn't change at all as he looked at him calmly. Plus, as I said before, I even confirmed with the guild leader before I made my move. I asked if I would take responsibility if I killed her, and she said no. This is something that everyone can see. Could it be that the guild leader still wants to stand up for her? His words were reasonable, and the people who were watching from afar nodded. At the time, they thought that this guy was just bullshitting, but they didn't expect him to actually have the strength to kill Zhang Zili. What a freak! Although the North Island's overall strength wasn't that strong, it had produced quite a number of heaven-defying characters. Shanghai Tianhua, Zhang Liju, these were all famous characters in the East Continent, and it seemed that there would be another legend of the North Island from now on. Chapter 49:31. However, he really did need Zhang Zili's help. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been so submissive before. But now, Zhang Zili was emitting black smoke from his body. What should he do? No matter what, you were the one who started this. Now that so many people have been injured, and even Master Zhang is lying on the ground, you have to give me a reasonable explanation, the Union Master said in an unpredictable tone. That's right. This matter was really unexpected, for people had been knocked down by this kid, and all of them were from the Tripod City Academy. Chong Lading, the young master with a strong background, two late Mysterious Ascension Academy chancellors, and now Zhang Zili. This was a big mess. If he couldn't give an explanation, he might as well give up his position as the president of the Academy Alliance. He could ignore everything else, but he had to at least give a satisfactory explanation to the Tripod City Academy. After all, it was one of the most influential Golden Stage academies. Moreover, he had something to ask of them. Explanation? Lin Yi looked at the president without batting an eyelid and asked with a deep meaning, I wonder what kind of explanation the president wants. You can't be thinking of using me as an apology, right? The guild master's heart skipped a beat. To be honest, the thought had popped up in his head for a moment, but he pushed it down immediately. While he had a favor to ask from Cauldron City, he wasn't stupid enough to offend Lin Yi, an early-stage mysterious ascending expert who could defeat a mountain opening stage giant. The significance of this was too great. There was no doubt that this kid's future was absolutely limitless, not to mention becoming a mountain opening stage giant. Even if he was on equal footing with him, the leader of the Alliance, it would be a matter of course. If he offended Lin Yi today, unless he was ruthless enough to eliminate him completely, he would be making himself a great enemy for no reason. A great enemy who could possibly surpass him in the future. If it was just potential, it wouldn't be a big deal. The number of super geniuses who had died in his hands was at least 80. Nipping a thread in the bud was a common thing in the East Continent, so it wasn't enough to scare him. What the Alliance leader was truly worried about was the other meaning. A genius like Lin Yi was definitely not someone that could be nurtured by ordinary forces. He must have an incomparably powerful background behind him. Perhaps it was one of the few who stood at the peak of the Yellow Class C region. This was the most frightening part. If he made a move against Lin Yi today, he might not even have to wait until tomorrow before a super powerhouse standing at the peak of the 5 heaven rank islands came to have a heart-to-heart talk with him. He still wanted to live for a few hundred or 1,000 years. After some thought, the Alliance president finally suppressed this dangerous thought and asked, "Which academy are you from?" "Your academy's qualification to participate in the next path of the tyrant trial is revoked." Instead of making a move against Lin Yi himself, he would make a move against the academy behind him. This was the safest way he could think of. He could use it to fool the Tripod City Academy, and he wouldn't really offend Lin Yi. After all, he was the Alliance president. It was within his authority to make a move against any Yellow Class Academy, and no one else could criticize him. Lin Yi was slightly stunned when he heard this, but he immediately understood what the Alliance president was thinking. The corner of his mouth curved up slightly, and he said calmly, I'm sorry, I don't belong to any academy. I'm from the North Island. The North Island? The Alliance president was stunned. He didn't know what had happened before, so he naturally didn't know where Lin Yi came from. He blurted out in disbelief, "Are you lying to me?" "Of course not." Lin Yi smiled faintly, and he suddenly walked forward, setting up a divine sense barrier that could prevent people from spying on them. The Alliance president saw this and knew that Lin Yi wanted to tell him something secretive, so he didn't stop him. Instead, he set up a stronger divine sense barrier as well. After all, Lin Yi's strength was clear for all to see, and his divine sense barrier might not be effective against the Alliance's opening stage masters. "I'm Lin Yi, a disciple of the Shanghai Tianhua of the North Island, and also the last disciple of the pill god Zhang Liju." Lin Yi said faintly in a low voice. "What?" The Alliance president's face changed when he heard this. Lin Yi's words were earth-shattering news, and the shock it brought him was no less than when he defeated Zhang Zili. No wonder he had to set up a divine sense barrier. One sentence brought out two legends of the North Island, and Lin Yi's words were indeed earth-shattering. Speaking of which, Shanghai Tianhua wasn't a big deal, although this was a supermaster who had once dominated the East Continent, and the Alliance president's strength was far from being on par with him. He really wasn't afraid of Shanghai Tianhua. After all, this was the East Continent, and Shanghai Tianhua was far away in the North Island. There were rules among the top masters, and because of that, Shanghai Tianhua couldn't come to East Continent easily, and it was even more impossible for him to seek revenge for a disciple. But the latter part of Lin Yi's words made the Alliance president's heart skip a beat. Looking at the 5 sky-class islands, the pill god Zhang Liju was a legend that could be counted with one's fingers, especially in the world of elixir refinement. This kind of influence and power was much stronger than the Shanghai Tianhua of the North Island. Plus, the Alliance president's biggest problem now was finding someone to concoct pills for him. Why did he have to lower his voice to Zhang Zili? Wasn't it because he wanted his help? One had to know that Zhang Zili was the only mystic-ranked first-level alchemist in the entire East Continent's Yellow Steppe Sea region. Although he had just broken through, a mystic-ranked alchemist was still a mystic-ranked alchemist. Just this point alone made Zhang Zili sit firmly on the position of the Yellow Steppe Sea region's #1 alchemist. No one could shake him, let alone the Golden Class Sea region. Even in the higher Mystic Class Sea region, there weren't many Mystic first-level refiners. For a Mystic refiner like Zhang Zili to appear in the Golden Class Sea region out of nowhere was something that had never happened before. Even the Golden Class School Alliance had to treat her with respect, and it was no wonder that she was so arrogant and condescending. The Alliance president had no choice but to ask her for help. After all, she was the only Mystic first-level refiner here. Going to the Mystic Class C region to ask for help was much harder than asking Zhang Zili for help. He might be the Golden Class School Alliance president, and he could do whatever he wanted in the Golden Class C region, but once he went to the Mystic Class C region, there were many people stronger than him. It was impossible to ask for help from a Mystic first-level refiner. Chapter 49:32. It wasn't easy to invite Zhang Zili over, but Lin Yi turned him into this. It would be a lie to say that he wasn't pissed. If it weren't for his concerns, he would have killed 100 Lin Yis to vent his anger. But now, after hearing that Lin Yi claimed to be Zhang Liju's disciple, the guild master's eyes lit up. "You're a refiner?" the guild master asked subconsciously. If Lin Yi didn't say that, he wouldn't have thought of it in this direction. After all, refiners were synonymous with weak strength. How could there be a refiner as strong as Lin Yi? Of all the refiners with this kind of strength, there was only Zhang Liju. Perhaps even he couldn't compare to this Lin Yi. killing a mountain opening, early stage mystic ascension, early stage. Zhang Liju didn't have such a heaven-defying record back then. Mystic first level. Lin, he was a master at lying. He didn't even bat an eyelid, calm and confident. The guild master had no choice but to believe him. Are you serious? You're not lying to me? The guild master was shocked. With such strength at such a young age, Lin Yi was definitely one of the top geniuses he had ever seen, but this guy claimed to be a mystic first-level refiner. This was heaven-defying. If it were anyone else who said this, the guild master would have sent them flying with a slap. Randomly meeting a mystic first-level refiner in the golden class waters. Did he think he was an idiot? But Lin Yi was different. Just the way he challenged Zhang Zili was enough to impress him. He didn't believe anyone else claiming to be a mystic first-level refiner, but since it came from Lin Yi, he really had to think about it. After all, this guy claimed to be Zhang Liju's disciple. If this was true, then it wouldn't be strange if Lin Yi was a mystic first-level refiner. To be able to become Zhang Liju's disciple meant that he had to be extremely talented. In terms of status, he was even higher than a normal disciple. If someone like this wasn't a mystic first-level refiner, then it would be a problem. Ha! With the guild master's intelligence, do you think I can fool you? Lin Yi gave him a compliment without a trace. Everyone liked to listen to compliments, and this powerful alliance leader was no exception. The Union Master's face softened a little, but he wouldn't believe Lin Yi's words just like that. He said he was a mystic level 1 refiner, and he said he was Zhang Liju's last disciple. There wasn't even a single witness. Who knew if this kid was just trying to scare the Union Master? Who can prove it? The Guild Master asked. Here, you can go ask that chick. Lin Yi pointed at Ni Kaiwe, who wasn't far away. At the same time, he was secretly happy. Since the Guild Master asked this, it meant that he had taken the bait. Lin Yi, of course, couldn't be considered a true mystic first-level refiner. He had never made a mystic first-level refiner before, but this didn't stop him from using this trick to bait the Guild Master. He wasn't just bluffing. After all, from a certain perspective, Lin Yi's skills were far above a normal 7th-level refiner. Otherwise, Qing Danzi wouldn't have begged him to be his disciple. It wasn't too much to pretend to be a mystic first-level refiner. The reason why he suddenly used this trick was because Lin Yi saw through the Guild Master's weakness. This guy didn't really care about Zhang Zili's life and death. He was so humble to Zhang Zili just now. It was obvious that he had something to ask of him. Combining their identities, it wasn't hard to deduce that the mystic first-level refiner was the best trick to deal with him. After all, he was the president of the Union. If he was just looking for someone to help him with alchemy, he should have a lot of 7th-grade alchemists under his command. Only a profound grade alchemist could make him humble like this. To put it bluntly, from the moment Lin Yi admitted his identity, it was a trap. He lured the Guild Master step by step, and now he was only one step away from success. Scaring someone was a highly technical job. Not only did he have to be observant, but he also had to find the right solution to the problem. He also had to make use of the opponent's mentality to build momentum, making sure that his cover was flawless. Lin Yi was evidently very familiar with this. She should be in the same group as you? The Guild Master glanced at Ni Kaiwe suspiciously. Since they were in the same group, then this woman's words didn't have any credibility. It was useless to ask. Witnesses can lie, but material evidence won't lie. Lin Yi smiled meaningfully. The Guild Master was stunned when he heard the words, and then he understood Lin Yi's meaning. He immediately raised his hand and pointed at Ni Kaiwe and said, "You come here." Because of the existence of the divine sense barrier, Everyone around could only see the conversation between Lin Yi and the guild master, but they didn't know what they were talking about. Even if everyone was itching in their hearts, they wouldn't dare to pry. After all, there was not only Lin Yi, a ruthless person who could challenge higher realms, but there was also a supermaster like the guild master. If they made any small movements, it would be impossible to escape the guild master's eyes and ears. At that time, they wouldn't even know how they died. As a result, when everyone was itching in their hearts, the voice of the guild master suddenly came from inside, and everyone's eyes fell on Enai Kaiwe. Ah, me? Enai Kaiwe was shocked when she saw the guild master pointing at her. She panicked and stuttered. Although I'm in cahoots with him, I didn't hit anyone. Don't arrest me, don't arrest me. Everyone listened and looked at Enai Kaiwe in a daze, not knowing what to say for a moment. Although Lin Yi had long been used to this girl's magical thinking, at this time, he also had a speechless expression. What kind of thinking is this? If you really want to disassociate yourself, then don't say that you're in cahoots. In the end, you say that you're in cahoots, but at the same time, you say, don't arrest me. Is this something a normal person can say? Lin Yi shook his head inwardly. It was fortunate that he'd managed to scare the Alliance's leader. Otherwise, the girl would have been dragged into the mess as well. That would have made him speechless. I'm not going to arrest you. I just want to ask you a few questions. The guild master frowned. If that's the case, okay then, you said you won't arrest me. Enai Kaiwe repeated worriedly, and then carefully walked to the side of the two. Chapter 49:33. Enai Kaiwe subconsciously looked at Lin Yi, then shrunk her neck and replied, My name is Enai Kaiwe. I'm a disciple of Donghua Academy. Okay, then tell me, is he a mystic level first level alchemist? The union leader asked directly. He's a mystic level first level alchemist? Enai Kaiwe heard this and jumped up in shock. Luckily, there was a spiritual barrier around them, or else her voice would have been heard by the entire dock. You don't know? The union leader frowned and looked at Lin Yi. He thought that since this woman was on the same side, she would definitely nod without hesitation. Who would have thought that she would have this kind of reaction? I don't know. He didn't tell me. I only know that he's an alchemist. Enai Kaiwe thought for a moment, then added, a very powerful alchemist. Oh, how powerful! The union leader's eyes lit up. He was able to refine 7 profound, nurturing pills in less than half a day. Moreover, he only used 4 sets of ingredients. Isn't he amazing? Enai Kaiwe's face was filled with pride as she said. Lin Yi was speechless. This silly girl really didn't have any wariness at all. Was this something that she could casually tell others? Previously, she was harassed by Chong Lading and the others, and it was not wrong at all. But then again, he had already expected this. He had asked the union leader to ask Enai Kaiwe for proof. If not, it would be hard for the other party to believe that he was a mystic-level first-level alchemist. After all, there was no proof for this kind of thing. He had to have enough evidence. Really? The union leader was instantly excited. 4 sets of materials to make 7 chi cultivating pills, and in less than half a day. This was definitely not something a 7th-level alchemist could do. Once the truth of this matter could be verified, then there was no doubt that he was a mystic-level first-level alchemist. Of course it's true. I was the one who found the profound raising grass here. Here, these 3 profound raising pills were concocted by him. As Enai Kaiwe spoke, she pulled out the 3 profound raising pills with an expression of fear that the other party would not believe her. Lin Yi was even more speechless. Although all of this was within his expectations, it was rare to see someone as forgetful as Enai Kaiwe. Wasn't this silly girl afraid that the other party would be tempted by her wealth? But then again, Anai Kaiwa was not really stupid. She was very careful when she took the profound raising pills. She deliberately used her body to block everyone's line of sight, only letting the Union president see it. With the Union president's strength and status, he naturally would not covet her trifling 3 profound raising pills. If she did not give them away, these pills would be completely useless to him. Looking at the 3 profound nurturing pellets in Anai Tsayue's hands, the Union leader sank into silence, unable to conceal the shock on his face. Of course, he knew that the path of a tycoon produced profound nurturing grass, and these 3 pellets were of high quality, full of pill fragrance. They did not seem like pellets that had been concocted for a long time, but rather recently. In other words, Anai Tsayue's words could be trusted. In fact, from the moment Anai Kaiwa introduced herself, it was impossible for her to lie, because this kind of lie could be easily exposed. And once it was exposed, the anger of the leader of the Union was not something that a disciple of the early stage of the mysterious Ascension realm could bear. After a moment of silence, the Union leader's attitude suddenly changed. He turned to Lin Yi and smiled apologetically. "Master Lin, let me reintroduce myself. I am the Golden Academy Union leader, Zhuang Yifan. I was presumptuous just now. Please forgive me, Master Lin." Lin Yi saw the change in Zhuang Yifan's expression clearly. He couldn't help but chuckle to himself. The big shots of the East Continent were much more snobbish than the big shots of the other Heaven Rank Islands. The big shots of the other Heaven Rank Islands all had to respect themselves and put on airs no matter what they did. However, the people of the East Continent were different. Almost every one of them had the ability to change their expressions. Lin Yi was already used to it. As the president of the alliance, Zhuang Yifan had always held a high position and was full of arrogance. He didn't even bother to let the Yellow Step Academy students know his name during the trial. That kind of arrogance was practically carved into his bones. But now, he took the initiative to introduce himself with a smile. Coupled with his previous submissive attitude towards Zhang Zili, it could be seen that this person was also someone who knew when to submit and when to stand tall. His arrogance also depended on the person. "President Zhuang, you're exaggerating. From the beginning to the end, you didn't do anything inappropriate. If I were in your position, I would have made the same choice. So, you don't have to worry about such a small matter." Lin Yi smiled faintly. Although it was a little arrogant to talk to Zhuang Yifan in this tone, he was now a mystic-level, first-level alchemist. If he didn't act so pretentiously, the other party might even suspect something was wrong. As expected of Senior Shangguan and Master Zhang's brilliant disciple, not only is Master Lin's strength extraordinary, but he also has such a rare temperament. You can be considered a role model for the young people of the East Continent. Zhuang Yifan smiled. He wasn't just flattering Lin Yi. He was truly impressed. One should know that the more talented one was, the more arrogant they were. He had seen his fair share of super geniuses. Although they were indeed outstanding, they all had their eyes on the top of their heads. Based on this point alone, Lin Yi, who knew when to advance and when to retreat, was at least 10 streets ahead of those super geniuses. "President Zhuang, you flatter me." Lin Yi smiled noncommittally. He turned to look at Zhang Zili and the others who were lying unconscious on the side, and said, "Then what do you plan to do about today's incident? Do you need me to give you another explanation?" "Hee, Master Lin, you must be joking. They all brought this upon themselves." Zhang Zili also said that this was a private matter between you all. You kept saying that they died for nothing. I couldn't even persuade them to stop. This is obvious to all. Why would I need to do anything unnecessary? Zhuang Yifan was quick to turn hostile. Forget standing up for Zhang Zili. He would be lucky if he didn't step forward and kick her. Of course, this was also because Zhang Zili didn't know how to behave herself. She thought that because she was a mystic-level first-level alchemist, she could act all high and mighty just because Zhuang Yifan wanted something from her. Based on her previous behavior, anyone would be furious, not to mention Zhuang Yifan. Lin Yi smiled. This was expected. Zhuang Yifan waved his hand and said to the Alliance guards beside him, "Send Master Zong and the others back to the Tripod City Academy's treasure ship. Although this is a private matter between them, it's not right to leave them lying here." Chapter 49-34. They didn't know what the two of them were whispering about. Seeing that Zhuang Yifan's attitude toward Zhang Zili's group had suddenly become so cold, they couldn't help but be astonished. However, they didn't dare to show any neglect on their faces, and hurriedly carried Zhang Zili's group away. They were only responsible for sending them back to the Tripod City Academy's ship. They didn't care about anything else. They didn't even care if Zhang Zili and the others were dead or alive. Everyone knew that this was a hot potato, and they would avoid it. Why would they care about other people's business? Master Lin, if you don't mind, why don't we go to the Alliance's division for a cup of tea? Let me be the host. From beginning to end, Zhuang Yifan didn't even look at Zhang Zili and the others. He was wholeheartedly trying to please Lin Yi. There's an Alliance division here. Lin Yi was slightly surprised. That's right. The headquarters of the Huang Grade College Alliance is located in Leidong City, but Leidong Plain Island is an important place for the Alliance. Naturally, there's a branch here as well. The conditions are not bad. Master Lin, you can go there to rest and relieve your fatigue, Zhuang Yifan introduced with a smile. Oh, I'll send the Morningstar Academy's disciples back first. I'll go back at night, when I have time. Lin Yi nodded. Of course. I'll send you back. Zhuang Yifan hurried to please him. As the president of the Golden Rank Academy Alliance, it was hard for him to humble himself like this. However, there was no other way. Alchemists had such a high status, especially Mystic Level 1 alchemists. Even in the Mystic Sea region, they were respected guests no matter where they went. Even magnate realm experts like them didn't dare to look down on these people. Most of the time, they had to be as careful as they were now. After all, there was no telling when they would have to beg the alchemist for help. All right. Lin Yi glanced at him with a smile that wasn't quite a smile and didn't hold back. In fact, he couldn't be polite even if he wanted to. Even though Zhuang Yifan already believed that he was a Mystic Level 1 alchemist, it was obvious that he didn't trust him completely. Other than trying to please Lin Yi, Zhuang Yifan was probably afraid that Lin Yi would slip away halfway. If Lin Yi were to reject him, it would only make him suspicious. Little and I, let's part ways here. We'll meet again in the future. Lin Yi turned around and bid farewell to Ni Kaiwe. Ni Kaiwe was still in a daze. She was stunned for a long time before she nodded her head. From the moment Lin Yi took care of the two unlucky chancellors to when he went against the trend and overthrew Zhang Ziji. And now she was inexplicably being complimented by Zhuang Yifan. The series of events today could be said to be a series of shocking twists and turns. Even now, she still hadn't fully recovered from it. Seeing this, Lin Yi chuckled and no longer paid attention to this silly girl. He extended his hand and called Wang Xinyan and the others over. Under the respectful gazes of the crowd, Zhuang Yifan personally escorted them back to the Morningstar Academy's treasured ship. At the same time, the treasured ship of the Morningstar Academy was in a mess. The commotion caused by Lin Yi and the others was too big. Not only did it attract the attention of many of the Academy's disciples, but the huge commotion caused by the Thunder Burial was even more earth-shattering, causing the surrounding sea to surge. If not for the huge tonnage of the treasured ship, it would have capsized long ago. Under these circumstances, if the people on the ship still didn't know that something had happened to Lin Yi and the others, they would definitely be deceiving themselves. It was just that the two places were too far apart, so they didn't know the specifics of the situation. They only knew that Lin Yi and the others were in huge trouble. At this moment, the leader of the chancellors was burning with anxiety. Although Lin Yi wasn't a disciple of the Morning Star Academy, his position in the academy was far more important than the other disciples. If he were to fall on the Thunder Plains Island as the leader of the chancellors, he would really have to carry his head back. The heads of the academy would definitely not let him off easily. As for the chief alchemist, Qing Danzi, he would probably fight to the death with him. Fortunately, the news that they had received at this time only stopped at the point where the Alliance guards had captured Lin Yi. They still didn't know that Lin Yi and Zhang Zili, the head of the mountain opening stage, were going to fight to the death. Otherwise, the leader of the chancellors would probably faint from fear. There's no other way. The only thing we can do now is to quickly send a message to the heads of the academy. No matter what, we have to think of a way to redeem Master Lin. We can't let him be detained in this place. Otherwise, if something happens to him, I won't be able to be a chancellor anymore. The leader of the chancellors was anxious like an ant on a hot pan. He muttered as he paced around. On the other side of the ship, Bao Zhuoyang and Su Kexing, who had returned long ago, were gloating. If it weren't for so many pairs of eyes on the ship, the two of them would have wanted to start a celebration banquet to celebrate. Ever since they went for wool and came home shorn on the path of a tycoon, these two had a belly full of bad luck. If it weren't for the fact that they had some self-awareness, they might have continued to try and get Lin Yi killed on the path of a tycoon. But that was just a fantasy. Even if Bao Zhuoyang was impulsive, Su Kexing would definitely stop him. He had no choice but to stop him. He would be courting death if he went to the path of giants. But this time, the two of them didn't need to worry about it at all. Lin Yi, the arrogant, pretentious guy, kicked an iron plate himself. After coming out, he actually dared to cause trouble in public. Even the Alliance guards were alarmed. Could it be that he would still have a good ending? The Alliance guards are famous for being tyrannical and overbearing. Lin Yi, that kid, is also arrogant. Now that he has fallen into the hands of the Alliance guards, even if he doesn't die, he will lose a layer of skin. Bao Zhuoyang lowered his voice and said excitedly, "In my opinion, it's not as simple as losing a layer of skin. Maybe this guy won't even be able to keep his life." Su Kexing sneered. "It can't be, right? Even the Alliance guards won't kill people casually. It can't be that exaggerated, right?" Although Bao Zhuoyang wanted Lin Yi to die even in his dreams, he hadn't reached the point of deceiving himself. Originally, there wasn't, but this time there definitely is. And I dare say that there is an 80 to 90% chance. Su Kexing said confidently. "Why is that? Tell me quickly." Bao Zhuoyang's eyes suddenly lit up. "Young Master Bao, didn't you hear what those people said just now? The person Lin Yi provoked this time is not an ordinary person. It's Chang Lading of Tripod City Academy. That's a famous person. Moreover, he even knocked out 2 chancellors of Tripod City Academy. Now that things have escalated to this point, it's already too late to resolve," Su Kexing analyzed. "But even so, he won't be killed directly, right?" Bao Zhuoyang was a little stunned. Chapter 49:35. "That's right. Great, that's great. Lin Yi is dead for sure." Bao Zhuoyang was so excited that he laughed heartily. Even if you beat them to death, they wouldn't have thought that the mountain opening stage magnate was already dead and had already become Lin Yi's stepping stone. Just as the two of them were rejoicing in Lin Yi's misfortune, their expressions suddenly froze at the same time. They were shocked to see that Lin Yi and the rest had actually returned unscathed, and there was no sign of the Alliance's guards. What's going on? Bao Zhuoyang was dumbfounded. This was completely different from what he had expected. It's indeed a little strange, but we can confirm that Lin Yi has indeed committed a crime. Young Master Bao, look, even the president of the Alliance was alarmed, and he actually personally escorted him back. It's obvious how serious this matter is. Su Kexing immediately saw through the truth. That's right, you're still the one who sees things clearly. You hit the nail on the head. I almost thought that he had escaped unscathed. Bao Zhuoyang immediately heaved a sigh of relief. As the two of them spoke, the rest of the people on the boat also saw Lin Yi and the rest. Suddenly seeing Zhuang Yifan, the chancellor who was at his wits' end, suddenly jumped in fright. Without caring about anything else, he immediately rushed off the boat to welcome them. I am the chancellor of the Morning Star Academy, Li Run. I didn't know that President Zhuang would personally come, so I didn't welcome you. Please forgive me, President Zhuang. Li Run respectfully greeted him. Although he was relieved to see that Lin Yi and the rest were unscathed, Zhuang Yifan's personal appearance still made his heart tremble. Because of the previous news, he and Bao Zhuoyang had the same preconceived idea that Zhuang Yifan had personally escorted Lin Yi back. Chancellor Li, you're exaggerating. Zhuang Yifan calmly waved his hand, not in the mood to talk to Li Run. He was the dignified president of the Alliance, while the other party was just a lowly chancellor. Both of them were far apart in terms of strength and status. Zhuang Yifan, could humble himself in front of mystic alchemists like Zhang Zili and Lin Yi, but in front of these people he was the high and mighty leader of the Union with an intimidating aura full of authority. Under normal circumstances, Li Run would not have dared to speak to Zhuang Yifan. However, he had no choice but to do so. He could only bite the bullet and apologize. President Zhuang, Master Lin is an important guest of our Morning Star Academy. His participation in the Path of the Magnate was approved by the Alliance headquarters. Since he is not familiar with the rules of the Academy Alliance, I hope President Zhuang will forgive him if he has done anything wrong. Our Morning Star Academy will take full responsibility. Shoulder all the responsibility. Zhuang Yifan looked at him strangely. If Lin Yi wasn't a mystic rank 1 alchemist, he would have died 1,000 times over for what he had done. Even Zhang Zili was beaten to the point of death. How could a mere Morning Star Academy take full responsibility for this? Zhang Zili was the chief alchemist of the Tripod City Academy. He was the leader of the alchemists in the entire Yellow Class C region. Now that something had happened to her, even an idiot would know that the Tripod City Academy would not let this go easily. Although the Morning Star Academy was not weak, it was still lacking compared to the Tripod City Academy, which was the cradle of alchemists. If they really fought to the death, the Morning Star Academy would most likely collapse. Of course, the more likely scenario was that the Morning Star Academy realized that the situation wasn't looking good and pushed Lin Yi out for the Tripod City Academy to vent their anger, abandoning the pawn to protect the rook. However, that was based on the premise that Lin Yi was only a student of an ordinary academy. Judging from Lin Yi's feat of going against the tide and defeating Zhang Zili, this assumption was obviously unreliable. Moreover, he was a mystic rank 1 alchemist. With such an important figure, the Morning Star Academy would probably fight to the bitter end, even if it meant perishing indiscriminately. After all, as long as Lin Yi matured, he would be a heavenly protective umbrella. If the Morning Star Academy could receive his full support, it wouldn't be impossible for the Yellow Class Academy to become a Mystic Class Academy in one fell swoop. As long as the Morning Star Academy's 3 magnates weren't stupid, they would definitely protect him at all costs. Therefore, Li Ren's statement of taking full responsibility wasn't out of line. Could it be that Master Lin has made a huge mess of things? Seeing Zhuang Yifun's strange gaze, Li Ren's heart skipped a beat. The difference in their levels was too big. If the other party really wanted to do something to Lin Yi, he wouldn't be able to stop him. A huge mess of things. You could say that. To others, it would indeed be a huge mess of things, but to Master Lin, it's too much of an exaggeration. At most, it's just a small inconvenience. Zhuang Yifan smiled reservedly. He had already given Lin Yi a lot of face by saying this much. It was impossible for him to explain any further. At least, Li Ren definitely didn't have that much face. Small inconvenience. Li Ren was stunned. This was completely different from the information he had just received. Those people had said that Lin Yi had killed 2 chancellors of the Cauldron City Academy. How could this be considered a small inconvenience? Zhuang Yifan had no interest in explaining to him. He turned to Lin Yi and smiled apologetically. Master Lin, I won't disturb you on the ship. I don't think you welcome me. Although he said this, he didn't have any intention of leaving. His intentions were clear. Now that Zhang Zili, whom he had spent so much effort to invite, was dead or alive, if he allowed Lin Yi to slip away, then he would really be screwed. Compared to the grand alchemy plan, his reputation as the president of the alliance was not worth mentioning. Lin Yi looked at the confused Li Ren, then looked at Zhuang Yifan, who was putting on an act. Lin Yi couldn't help but feel helpless. Since Zhuang Yifan was so thick-skinned, he couldn't just play dumb and let him go, could he? He was the guild leader of the alliance, after all, and that would be too much. Moreover, Zhuang Yifan was the president of the alliance. These Huang Stage Academies wouldn't even be able to invite him normally. If he was willing to board the Morning Star Academy's treasured ship, then it would be a great honor for the academy. This was a good opportunity to show off in front of all the other academies. President Zhuang, what are you saying? You're a distinguished guest that no one can invite. Since you're already here, why don't you board for a while? Otherwise, if word got out, wouldn't it damage the reputation of the Morning Star Academy? Outsiders would say that the Morning Star Academy doesn't know how to behave properly. I wouldn't dare let the Morning Star Academy take this kind of blame, Lin Yi said with a smile. Master Lin, it would be impolite of me to refuse. No matter what, I can't tarnish the reputation of the Master Lin. He. Zhuang Yifan immediately found Lin Yi to be even more pleasing to the eye. It was rare to see such a super genius. This kid's future was limitless. Chapter 49:36. Just as they were about to board the ship, a familiar female voice came from behind. Lin Yi, how are you? Are you okay? Lin Yi and the others turned around and saw Hui Yudi running over anxiously. She had heard the rumor on the ship just like Li Ren and the others, so she rushed over anxiously. Hui Yudi knew more details than Li Ren about the disturbance just now because there were people from Morning Pride Academy passing by. Not only did she hear that Lin Yi killed Chang Lading, the former 4th Young Master of Nascent Soul Stage and 2 Chancellor of Cauldron City Academy in the late Profound Ascension Stage, but even Zhang Zili, who was in the early Mountain Opening Stage, was beaten to a pulp by him. Regarding this, she was shocked and proud, but she was also frightened. Just killing the 3 people in front of her was already a big deal. And the worst thing was that Lin Yi actually killed Zhang Zili, who was the only profound first-level alchemist in the Yellow Level C. Once the Academy Alliance dealt with this strictly, especially if the higher-ups of Cauldron City Academy came out to cause trouble, Lin Yi would be in big trouble this time. He might not even be able to keep his life. So how could Hui Yudi not come? Seeing Hui Yudi appear, Lin Yi couldn't help but feel happy and touched. But this time, it wasn't just Hui Yudi. there were two other people behind her. One was Lu Ziyu, the other was Ren Zhongyuan. When the incident happened, Lu Ziyu was still in her room and was dragged out by the anxious Hui Yuri. After hearing about Lin Yi's matter on the way, she was also shocked. Her purpose for appearing here was very simple, and that was to find a way to plead for mercy for Lin Yi. No matter what, she had to at least save Lin Yi's life. Although Lu Ziyu knew that this might not be useful, she was after all a mountain opening stage powerhouse and the deputy dean of Morning Pride Academy. She believed that as long as she told Lin Yi's background, Zhuang Yifan would analyze the pros and cons, and even if he refused to reduce the matter to a small one, he should not put Lin Yi to death. Otherwise, he would offend both the North Island and West Island, and normal people would not do such a stupid thing. It wasn't strange for Lu Ziyu to appear here, but it wasn't Hui Yuri's intention for Ren Zhongyuan to come and join in the fun as well. This guy seemed to have a complicated expression on his face, but the corners of his lips were clearly showing delight at Lin Yi's misfortune. He wouldn't be Ren Zhongyuan if he didn't come and personally witness such a delightful event. Speaking of which, this guy was actually a talent. Ever since he was chased away by Lin Yi on the path of giants, he, Yi Xiaotian, and the others spent a long time to finally find the Thunder Tribulation Point. But among all of them, he was the only one who successfully advanced to profound ascension, and it was very rare that he did not use the Thunder Xian pill. Although his father, Ren Tiansuo, was a 7th-grade alchemist, even the cleverest housewife could not cook without rice. No matter how strong one's alchemy ability was, it was useless without the Thunder Xian vine. It could not be conjured out of thin air. And rare elixirs like the Thunder Xian pill could not be bought except in large-scale auctions. Even if it appeared in large-scale auctions, the probability of it appearing was very low, and it was the same as the last morning star auction ceremony. Often, as soon as it appeared, it would be the rhythm of all the big shots desperately fighting for it. How could it be easy for Ren Zhongyuan to snatch the Thunder Xian pill from these people? However, the Thunder Xian pill was not necessary to advance to profound ascension. The Thunder Xian pill was only the first choice to deal with the Thunder Tribulation. For most people, the Thunder Xian pill was something that they could only hope for. They could only settle for the next best thing, like the 7th-grade Great Recovery pill. Although this would greatly affect the fusion of the spiritual root, as long as they were strong enough and lucky enough, they still had a chance to advance to profound ascension. At the very least, they could save their lives. However, what Ren Zhongyuan used was not the 7th-grade Great Recovery pill, but the top-grade healing elixir, the longevity pill, which was refined from the longevity root. Its effect was much better than the 7th-grade Great Recovery pill. The last time he went to West Island with Yi Xiaotian and the others, the main purpose was to collect the longevity root. Relying on the almost nature-defying healing effect of the longevity pill, Ren Zhongyuan forcibly survived the Thunder Tribulation and successfully advanced to profound ascension. This was already considered very powerful for ordinary people. At least Yi Xiaotian and Yao Jieli, who had the same conditions, did not succeed in advancing. Until now, they were still lying in bed and had not recovered their vitality. Hee, to think that you would have such a day. God has really opened his eyes. Ren Zhongyuan looked at Lin Yi, who was personally captured by Zhuang Yifan. Speaking of which, his success in advancing this time was largely due to Lin Yi. If he had not been tortured by Lin Yi's 5 elements, murderous aura, his willpower would not have been so tempered. It would have been very difficult for him to grit his teeth and endure the attack of the Thunder Tribulation. In the end, it was very likely that he would have failed at the last step, just like Yi Xiaotian and the others. However, Ren Zhongyuan obviously would not be grateful to Lin Yi unless his brain was really flooded with water. While Ren Zhongyuan was secretly feeling happy, Hui Yuri had already rushed forward regardless of everything. She stood in front of Lin Yi and said to Zhuang Yifan, Lin Yi was only defending himself. Moreover, it was those people from Tripod City Academy who threatened him first. The fault is not with Lin Yi, but with them. You can't take Lin Yi away. While arguing for what was right, Hui Yuri kept giving her master meaningful looks, indicating for Lu Ziyu to quickly speak up. However, Lu Ziyu did not speak immediately. Hui Yuri was confused due to her concern, but she could already tell that something was wrong with the situation. At the very least, Zhuang Yifan was clearly not here to cause trouble. Looking at their expressions, why did it seem more like they were here to visit? Humph, go ahead and plead for him. This brat has caused such a commotion that even the president of the alliance has personally come to arrest him. What's the use of pleading? It will only make his death even more miserable and faster. Similarly, Run Zhongyuan could not see the situation clearly. At this moment, he was already imagining the scene of Lin Yi being sliced into 1,000 pieces. Just thinking about it gave him great satisfaction. However, before Run Zhongyuan could have a good time in his heart, Zhuang Yifan's first words caused his expression to change, and he almost choked to death. Master Lin, this is... Zhuang Yifan looked at Hui Yuri curiously. Although he did not say any blatant flattery, his expression and posture were clearly filled with indescribable respect. This was something that even an idiot could see. Lin, Master Lin. Ren Zhongyuan immediately fell to the ground with a thud. Zhuang Yifan was the president of the alliance, and he actually called this brat a master? F***CK. This brat beat Zhang Zili to the point where he didn't know if he was dead or alive. Shouldn't you hurry up and arrest him? How the hell are you the president of the alliance? Chapter 49:37. Ren Zhongyuan wasn't the only one who was shocked. Hui Yuri was just as shocked. She looked at Lin Yi blankly, completely confused. This is my... Lin Yi paused, then winked at Hui Yuri and smiled. My girlfriend, Hui Yuri from the Morning Pride Academy. Girlfriend? What do you mean? Zhuang Yifan didn't understand the term, and he put on a look of understanding. Oh, a female friend, right? I didn't expect Master Lin to be so humorous. Ha ha. He thought that Lin Yi was joking, so he played along and smiled. He didn't know that Lin Yi's words were like a public confession. Zhuang Yifan and the others didn't understand, but Hui Yuri did. She blushed and looked at Lin Yi tenderly. She wanted to say something, but then realized that the situation wasn't right. She quickly swallowed her girlish thoughts and looked at Zhuang Yifan. Wasn't this guild leader here to capture Lin Yi? Since everyone's here, why don't we all sit on the boat? Lin Yi extended the invitation with a smile, giving Wang Xinyan and Huang Xiaotao a look at the same time. Hui Yuri and Lu Ziyu must be full of questions right now, and they needed someone to explain the whole story to them. Everyone nodded. Li Ren took the lead. Lin Yi in the middle, Zhuang Yifan purposely a step behind, and the others trailed behind. It was a lively scene. Bao Zhuoyang and Su Cushing, who had stayed on the boat to watch the show, almost had their eyes fall out of their sockets. They were as depressed as Ren Zhongyuan. It was supposed to be a perfect scenario for Lin Yi's death. So how did things turn out like this? Even though they were depressed, it was clearly not their place to speak. Even Li Run, the head chancellor, was trembling beside Zhuang Yifan, not to mention the academy disciples. They couldn't do anything other than greet Zhuang Yifan from afar. They didn't dare take a step closer, either, and could only watch as Li Run invited Lin Yi and Zhuang Yifan into the guest room. Other than Lu Ziyu, only Lin Yi and the other girls had the right to follow. What the hell is going on? Didn't you say that Lin was going to die? Why is he hooking up with the guild leader? Bao Zhuoyang was furious. I don't know. Logically speaking, the president should be standing up for Cauldron City Academy. After all, there's no way Cauldron City Academy would let this go. Their position in the Golden Step Academy Alliance is very high. There's no way the president wouldn't give them face. Su Kexing's face was gloomy. It can't be that Lin Yi's face is bigger than Tripod City Academy's, right? Bao Zhuoyang suddenly scared himself. Maybe it's possible. Kexing suddenly thought of Lin Yi's legendary identity as a mystic stage alchemist. There was no other explanation. Damn it! Let this brat escape a calamity again. Bao Zhuoyang punched the ground in frustration. He had no choice but to hide in his room and drink his sorrows. If he did not drown his sorrows in alcohol, he was afraid that he would do something impulsive in front of the Alliance Master. That would be a joke. Everyone sat down in the guest room. After exchanging pleasantries for a long time, Lin Yi had no choice but to sit in the main seat. Zhuang Yifan was here for him. If he didn't sit in the main seat, was he supposed to let Li Run sit? Li Run wouldn't dare to take the seat, even if he was beaten to death. I've seen at least 80 super geniuses, but it's the first time I've seen someone as amazing as Master Lin. The North Island really is a place where masters come from, Zhuang Yifan complimented as soon as he sat down. You're flattering me, guild leader Zhuang. Lin Yi smiled faintly and didn't refute. After all, he couldn't say that the North Island was a weak place, could he? Plus, he'd claimed to be Shanghai Tianhua and Zhang Liju's disciple, as well as a mystic stage 1 refiner. He had to act tough to the end. He couldn't just give up halfway. Otherwise, it'd be troublesome if Zhuang Yifan got suspicious. Ha! Master Lin, you're too humble. Forgive me for asking, but Master Lin, are you planning to stay in East Continent for a long time, or are you here to join the path of a tyrant? If you're interested in staying in East Continent for a long time, I have a good relationship with a few of the principals of the mystic schools. I'm sure they'll come to you no matter what. What do you think, Master Lin? Zhuang Yifan said, trying to please Lin Yi. The suggestion brightened everyone's eyes. For most of the students, the next thing they needed to think about after breaking through was how to get into the higher-level mystic schools. Not every mystic ascension stage master could get into a mystic school. It was extremely difficult, even more so than when they tried their best to get into the Golden School. The reason was very simple. Although the number of profound ascending stage masters was much less than that of nascent soul stage masters, but at the same time, the cultivation resources that could be effective for profound ascending stage masters were much less, and the competition was much fiercer. Naturally, the quota for the Xuanjie Academy was much more precious. With Lin Yi's talent and strength, he wouldn't have to worry about not having a spot in the mystic schools. However, there was no guarantee of his position in the school. If he was just a normal disciple, and not a core disciple, then it'd be a huge problem. But if Zhuang Yifan personally introduced him, then things would be different. A core disciple's identity would be unavoidable. This was much better than going to the mystic school selection alone. I appreciate your kindness, Headmaster Zhuang, but I don't have plans to stay in East Continent any longer. We'll talk about mystic schools in the future. Lin Yi rejected without hesitation. It wasn't that he didn't want to accept the favor, but he really didn't have any plans. It was the same reason why he didn't want to come to East Continent to join the Golden School. People like him could only improve faster by training outside. Joining a mystic school would restrict him, so he might as well go out on his own. Chapter 49:38. Then I'll thank President Zhuang in advance. By the way, President Zhuang wants me to refine pills, right? Lin Yi suddenly changed the topic. Zhuang Yifan was overjoyed. He had shamelessly pestered Lin Yi to refine pills, but he couldn't just ask right away. That was why he took such a big detour, wanting to show his kindness to Lin Yi first. This way, he could ask Lin Yi to help him refine pills. That's right, this is a bit presumptuous. I'm being rude. Zhuang Yifan nodded quickly. Oh, then what pill does President Zhuang want to refine? Lin Yi asked. The pill that the other party wanted to refine was undoubtedly a profound level pill, although he, a profound level 1 alchemist, was pulled out at the last minute to scare people, but he really wanted to take this opportunity to give it a try. After all, he could easily refine a 7th level pill. Maybe he could also successfully refine a profound level pill. Then he would be a true mystic class alchemist in the future. Zhuang Yifan looked at the others awkwardly. It was obvious that he didn't want these unrelated outsiders to know about this. Dean Lu, it's rare for you to come to our Morning Star Academy's ship. Why don't I accompany you around? Li Ren suggested. All right, then I'll have to trouble Chancellor Li. Lu Ziyu nodded slightly, her expression a little strange. Seeing that Lin Yi was no longer in danger, she felt a little strange. After all, Morning Pride Academy and Morning Star Academy were arch-enemies. Why would she, the Vice Dean of Morning Pride Academy, come to their arch-enemy's ship? Previously, her mind was filled with how to plead for Lin Yi, and with Hui Yuri's urging, she didn't even think about it. Now that she thought about it, she felt a little uncomfortable. But since she was already here, it would be too petty of her to leave now. She could only bite the bullet and continue. Li Ren left with Lu Ziyu. Hui Yuri, Wang Xinyan, and Huang Xiaotao also tactfully followed. Now, only Lin Yi and Zhuang Yifan were left in the guest hall. President Zhuang, there are no outsiders now. Just tell me what pill you want me to refine. Lin Yi said immediately, but he was secretly surprised. It was just alchemy. Could it be that this guy had something he couldn't tell others? Did he have to ask everyone to leave? Master Lin, the pill I would like to ask you to refine is a mystic first-rank earth-solid pill. Zhuang Yifan finally spoke. Earth-strengthening pill. What kind of pill is that? Lin Yi was stunned when he heard this. Although he often flipped through some books related to alchemy, when he had nothing to do, the scope of his understanding was basically limited to yellow-level alchemy. His understanding of profound-level alchemy was almost a blank. Master Lin doesn't know about the earth-strengthening pill. Zhuang Yifan was even more surprised than Lin Yi. He suddenly had some doubts. A mystic first-rank alchemist didn't know about mystic first-rank alchemy. Could this guy be a con artist? However, he suppressed this thought as soon as it appeared. Judging from the qi-cultivating pill in Ni Tsayue's hands, there was no doubt that this Lin Yi could easily refine yellow-level 7th-rank pills. His identity as a mystic first-rank alchemist should be credible. Forgive me for my ignorance, but I really haven't heard of it. Lin Yi shook his head very calmly, without a hint of guilt. Zhuang Yifan was even more certain now. It seemed like he really wasn't a con artist, who said that mystic alchemists would definitely know about all mystic pills. Every profession had its own specialties. Even alchemists couldn't refine just any pill. They all had their strengths and weaknesses. Actually, it's no wonder that Master Lin doesn't know about it. This earth-strengthening pill is indeed very rare. After all, it's not usually used. Even the merchant guilds in the Mystic Sea region don't sell it. If it weren't for my injury, I wouldn't have paid attention to this pill. Zhuang Yifan nodded in understanding. President Zhuang is injured? Lin Yi was stunned again. Yes, to tell you the truth, I am an earth-opening expert. And in the late stage, Zhuang Yifan admitted. Lin Yi's eyelid twitched slightly. Although he had guessed it, he was still a little shocked to hear it from the other party. He didn't expect this person to be an earth-opening expert. But if he was so strong, how could he be injured? Could it be that there was someone even stronger than him in the yellow level C region? Seeing the confusion on Lin Yi's face, Zhuang Yifan smiled bitterly and shook his head. I wasn't injured because I fought with someone. I was impatient and forced myself to break through to the peak of the late stage. As a result, I failed and suffered a backlash. Although it doesn't look like I'm injured on the surface, it has already affected the foundation of my strength, causing my current strength to be unstable. That's why I need an earth strengthening pill. This is a pill specially used to consolidate the strength of an earth opening expert. I see. Lin Yi nodded in understanding, then asked, so President Zhuang invited Zhang Zili here just for this? That woman is also a mystic level 1 alchemist? Yes, she is the only mystic level 1 alchemist in the yellow level C region, and she just advanced not long ago. Normally, you can't find mystic level 1 alchemists here, so they are all in the mystic level C region, Zhuang Yifan admitted. Okay, then show me the alchemy materials and the pill recipe. I will try it. There should be no problem. Lin Yi said immediately. Okay, I have the pill recipe with me, and the materials are in the Alliance branch. I will go and get them now. Zhuang Yifan nodded, and then disappeared in front of Lin Yi's eyes. After a while, he suddenly appeared in front of Lin Yi, holding a half-sized wooden box in his hand, which was filled with all kinds of precious elixirs. Lin Yi was secretly speechless. No wonder he was a big shot in the late stage of the earth opening. His speed was really unparalleled. This is the pill recipe for the earth consolidating pill. As for the materials, I have already gathered 3 sets. I wonder if I can succeed. Zhuang Yifan looked at Lin Yi eagerly. One could not blame him for being so impatient. He had already racked his brain over this matter. After all, this was different from those elixirs used to break through. It did not matter if it was earlier or later, but with Zhuang Yifan's current state, if he dragged it out for too long, it was very likely that something big would happen. It might even lead to a tragic decline in his strength. By that time, even if he could stabilize his realm, he would inevitably be unable to rise again. From then on, it would be difficult for him to advance even an inch, and it would probably be the end of his life. Chapter 49-39. If the 2 refinement methods were similar, then Lin Yi didn't have to worry, since the upgraded godly armament cauldron could easily refine a 7th level yellow level pill. Then he could naturally try refining a 1st level mystic level pill as well. But if the 2 refinement methods were very different, then there was no need to even try. Even if he let his disciple Qing Danzi try, the success rate would probably be much higher than his master. In terms of pure alchemy ability, Qing Danzi was actually much better than Lin Yi. It was just that he didn't have a divine alchemy tool, like the godly armament cauldron. Zhuang Yifan didn't dare to disturb them. After a while, Lin Yi suddenly frowned and whispered, Metal, wood, and earth? What? Did Master Lin notice any problems? Zhuang Yifan's heart skipped a beat as he quickly asked, It's not that big of a problem. Lin Yi shook his head thoughtfully, but didn't continue the topic. Zhuang Yifan thought that Lin Yi didn't have the confidence to refine the earth-strengthening pill. He immediately smiled apologetically and comforted, the earth-strengthening pill is too uncommon. It doesn't matter if Master Lin fails. It's reasonable. If even Master Lin can't refine it, then it's hard for others. He was afraid that Lin Yi would think it was too difficult and change his mind at the last minute. After all, it was true that the earth-strengthening pill was very rare. Even the first-level mystic-level alchemists in the Mystic Sea region might not have the confidence to refine it, because the demand for the earth-strengthening pill was too low. Most alchemists had never refined it before, so no one could guarantee the success rate. For Zhuang Yifan, success or failure was actually secondary. The key was whether or not there was a first-level mystic-level alchemist willing to help. After all, as long as he started refining, even if he had never refined it before, there was still a chance of success. But if no one was willing to help, then there was no chance at all. With President Zhuang's words, "I'm relieved." Hearing this, Lin Yi smiled noncommittally. In fact, his exclamation just now didn't mean that he couldn't refine it, but he discovered a fundamental difference between Xian and Huang level pills in this pill recipe. As everyone knew, yellow class pills didn't have any special requirements for the alchemist's own spirit root. As long as the corresponding alchemist was an alchemist, they could refine it. But this profound grade pill was completely different. Not only did it have a higher requirement for the alchemist's alchemy ability, but each profound grade pill had different requirements. Just like this earth solid pill, it not only required the most basic alchemy fire during the process of alchemy, but it also required true qi that corresponded to the properties of the ingredients. Metal, wood, and earth were all indispensable. Otherwise, no matter how high one's alchemy skills were, they would not be able to form the pill at the last step. Lin Yi nodded to himself. Compared to Huang level pills, the process of refining a profound grade pill was obviously much more complicated. Also, because every pill had different requirements for the spirit root, there was a very difficult threshold. Most profound grade first-level alchemists would only be able to refine a few types of pills and would be powerless to refine others that didn't match. In actuality, Lin Yi didn't know the whole picture. Although there were elemental requirements for mystic-class elixirs, it wasn't an absolute requirement. In order to become a mystic-class elixir refiner, one had to master an advanced technique unique to the refiner, and that was to simulate different elemental essences in the process of making elixirs. Because only in this way could the majority of profound level dawn be concocted. Otherwise, if one were to rely purely on one's own spiritual root attribute, then more than half of the profound level dawn would be lost. Take the solid earth pill, for example. One must have metal, wood, earth, and fire spiritual roots at the same time. Moreover, one must be a profound level alchemist. How many people in this world could you find? Only by mastering the high-level technique of simulating the basic true qi of various elements at the same time could one meet the requirements for most profound grade pills. Otherwise, it would be nonsense. This was a compulsory course for a profound grade alchemist. If one couldn't master this high-level technique, then one would never be able to become a profound grade alchemist. No matter how much experience one had, it would be useless. This was a natural chasm between a yellow grade alchemist and a profound grade alchemist. Many seventh-level alchemists of the yellow grade could never cross this chasm in their entire lives. In fact, not only profound grade alchemists, many yellow grade alchemists also had a similar technique. Back then, Boss Bai had said that as long as one used the corresponding chant, one could achieve the effect of simulating Dan fire. For example, alchemists who didn't have a water spirit root could also simulate and catalyze a water Dan fire. However, this technique could only simulate a single element. It was impossible to simulate all the elements at the same time. The difference between the two was like the difference between heaven and earth. This was like how elementary school students could easily grasp numerical calculations, but would only be afraid of advanced mathematics. The two techniques seemed to be the same in essence, but in fact, there was a huge threshold that was hard to surpass. And if it was just simulating a single element, it obviously wouldn't be able to meet the requirements of refining a profound grade pill. Others could casually use several elements. So how could a single simulation deal with all of them? If others wanted to become a profound grade alchemist, they had to practice this compulsory course to perfection. However, Lin Yi was an exception. He hadn't even heard of this before, so naturally, he didn't know such a high-level technique. However, he didn't need to use this high-level technique at all, because he was a freak with 8 elements. He could naturally meet more than 90% of the requirements for refining a profound grade pill. This daunting threshold was like nothing to him. Although Zhuang Yifan was a great master in the late stage of Earth opening, he wasn't an alchemist after all. Naturally, he didn't know the various tricks involved. Seeing Lin Yi's attitude, he immediately let out a sigh of relief. No matter what, it was good that Lin Yi agreed to help refine the pill. Regardless of whether this time is successful or not, I will thank Master Lin in advance. I have already ordered people to prepare a banquet to welcome Master Lin. As for refining the pill, there's no need to rush. Master Lin can rest for a while first. Although Zhuang Yifan was anxious, he didn't dare to rush Lin Yi. Instead, he acted very considerate. You just came out from the Path of Giants and fought with Zhang Zili and the others. I believe Master Lin is tired, right? Hee, then I will trouble President Zhuang. I will go over tonight. Lin Yi smiled faintly. As for the latter question, he didn't mention it. If he really told the truth, he was afraid that he would provoke Zhuang Yifan. It was better to keep a low profile. Chapter 49-40. If that's the case, then I'll take my leave. Rest well. Master Lin, we'll meet again tonight. Zhuang Yifan said tactfully. He thought that Lin Yi was just worried about his image, and that was why he was putting up a front in front of him. If he didn't know what was good for him and left immediately, it would be troublesome if this young mystic, first-level refiner, were to die from exhaustion. All right, let's meet again tonight. Lin Yi stood up to see him off. However, before the two left the guest room, Zhuang Yifan suddenly stopped and said, "Every year after the Path of the Magnate, there will be a celebration banquet. Every school will send people to participate. I feel that there's no time like the present, so I might as well hold it together with tonight's banquet. What do you think, Master Lin? This is a matter for the school alliance. President Zhuang can arrange it. I have no objections." Lin Yi looked at him strangely. Was there a need to discuss something like this with an outsider? Then it's settled. Master Lin, you can ask Chancellor Li to come with you. Just tell him that I saved a seat for him at the main table. Zhuang Yifan smiled meaningfully before bidding farewell to Lin Fan. Haha, this Zhuang Yifan sure knows how to act. Lin Yi smiled as he watched Zhuang Yifan leave. It was obvious that Zhuang Yifan was going to do Morning Star Academy a favor for Lin Yi's sake. Otherwise, with so many Golden Division schools, Morning Star Academy might not be able to get a seat at the main table. This was a rare opportunity for them to show their face. After Zhuang Yifan left, Hui Yudi, Wang Xinyan, and Huang Xiaotao rushed in, followed by Lu Ziyu and Li Run. How did it go? What did President Zhuang say? Hui Yudi asked impatiently. Even though she'd heard the whole story from Wang Xinyan, she was still worried for Lin Yi. Lin Yi was only using the title of a mystic first-level alchemist to scare Zhuang Yifan, but if he came back to his senses, the consequences would be unimaginable. Nothing much. He asked me to help him with alchemy, and I agreed. It's that simple. Lin Yi shrugged, as if nothing had happened. You agreed? What he wants to refine should be a profound tear pill. Can you really refine it? Hui Yudi was instantly taken aback. Lu Ziyu and Li Ren also revealed bewildered expressions when they heard this. Only Wang Xinyan and Huang Xiaotao remained calm. They were already used to it. Won't we know whether this is possible or not once we try? Lin Yi smiled slightly, with a hint of playfulness in the corner of his mouth. He said, even if it's a mystic grade first-level alchemist, it's impossible to guarantee success every time. If I fail this time, it's also a very normal thing, right? I see. Only then did the crowd understand why Lin Yi dared to lie to a big shot like Zhuang Yifan. This was the key. If it was just a simple lie, it would be as difficult as ascending to the heavens to deceive Zhuang Yifan. Even if he managed to fool him in the beginning, he would definitely give himself away later on. Lin Yi's clever lie was not necessarily a lie. It could very well become reality, and even if it didn't become reality, there would still be a reasonable explanation. Only with half-truths and half-lies could one be undefeatable. Right, Zhuang Yifan said that he's holding a celebratory feast tonight. Chancellor Li, he also said that there's a place for you at the main table. Lin Yi said on behalf of Li Run, what? Isn't the celebratory feast supposed to be held at the Thunderous City headquarters after the trial is over? Why is it suddenly brought forward? Li Run didn't react for a moment. After a moment of daze, he stuttered, the main table, there's a place for me? That's right, that's exactly what he said. So prepare yourself, we'll go together tonight. Lin Yi nodded. This is really a big surprise. Li Run took a deep breath and solemnly bowed to Lin Yi. Master Lin, on behalf of the Morning Star Academy, I thank you for your great kindness. He, Chancellor Li, you're too kind. I've troubled the Morning Star Academy for so long. This is something I should do. Besides, even if you really want to thank someone, you should thank Zhuang Yifan. He was the one who suggested it. Lin Yi smiled and shook his head. No, if it weren't for you, President Zhuang wouldn't have taken such good care of our Morning Star Academy. Li Run waved his hands and explained, Master Lin, you might not know this, but the celebratory feast every year is to celebrate the path to becoming a magnate, but it's actually related to the re-ranking of all the Golden Tier Academies. The closer the academy is to the main table, the more attention they'll receive from the Alliance in the future, and the more training resources they'll receive. In the past, only a few of the top Golden Grade Academies were able to occupy a seat at the main table. They were all like the Leidong Academy and the Tripod City Academy. Our Morning Star Academy has never received such an honor. Li Run became more and more excited as he spoke, and by the end, his face was glowing. If he could represent the Morning Star Academy and occupy a seat at the main table, it would be entirely due to Lin Yi's efforts. But as the Chancellor leading the team, he would also have made a huge contribution. When he returned to the Academy, he would be rewarded handsomely, and he would be promoted 3 ranks in a row. So there's such a thing. If that's the case, then Zhuang Yifan has really given us a big gift. Lin Yi suddenly understood. He'd thought that at most it would just be a meal and a show of his face. He didn't think that there would be such a deep meaning. Zhuang Yifan was indirectly showing that he had the ability to support the Morning Star Academy. Of course, the prerequisite was that Lin Yi had to help him concoct the pills. Otherwise, he could easily crush the Morning Star Academy. Ever since President Zhuang took over the leadership of the Golden Tier Academy Alliance, he's always been balanced. He rarely takes the initiative to support a certain academy. For your academy to be able to gain his favor, it's only a matter of time before you can stand shoulder to shoulder with those top academies. It's truly a cause for celebration. Lu Ziyu said with a smile, but her expression was a little complicated. This was a good thing for both fame and fortune. For the Morning Star Academy, it was naturally a joyous occasion, but for her Morning Pride Academy, it wasn't so good. Their archenemy had suddenly skyrocketed, and anyone standing in the Morning Pride Academy's position would probably not be able to laugh. Congratulations to you too. Li Run was still immersed in his ecstasy and only reacted after he subconsciously finished speaking. His expression immediately became extremely awkward. The other party was the vice principal of the Morning Pride Academy. Congratulations, my ass. For a moment, the atmosphere in the guest hall became a little strange. As a guest, Lu Ziyu had mixed feelings, and as the host, Li Ren also had an embarrassed expression, not knowing what to say. The scene immediately fell into a deadlock. Chapter 49-41. Feel free to speak your mind. Lu Ziyu was slightly taken aback. According to Hui Yuri's relationship, Lin Yi should have called her Aunt Lu more cordially, but now he suddenly called her Dean Lu. This was most likely a major matter concerning the two academies. Master Lin, please speak. Li Ren was also a little puzzled. In my opinion, since Chun Jiao and Qin Xing are originally one body, and there is no irreconcilable hatred between the two, why don't I ask President Zhuang to come forward and be the peacemaker, and the two academies will shake hands and make peace. What do you two think? Lin Yi said seriously. Lu Ziyu was silent for a moment and quickly understood Lin Yi's intentions. His desire to resolve the grudges between the two was actually just a pretense, and his true goal was to let Qinjiao Academy take advantage of the situation. If he came forward to speak about this matter, then Zhuang Yifan would not be biased and only help Qin Xing, and Qinjiao Academy would definitely be able to gain a place in the alliance. Whether it was Qin Xing or Qinjiao, the foundations of the academies were not bad. Back then, before they had split, they were the top academies in the Huang Class C region. It was only because they had split up that they suffered a great loss. But even so, the strength of the two academies could still squeeze into the ranks of the top academies. If they could really shake hands and make peace in the future, with the full support of Zhuang Yifan, the president of the alliance, it would not be difficult to restore their former glory. At that time, Leidong Academy and Cauldron City Academy would have to stand aside. I have no problem on my side. Lu Ziyu nodded, without hesitation. Although many of the higher-ups of Qinjiao Academy were still brooding over what happened back then, those who could reach this step were all people who knew how to adapt to circumstances. In the face of real benefits, no one would hold on to this little grudge, or else they would be the sinners of Qinjiao Academy. Then, Chancellor Li, what do you think? Lin Yi turned to look at Li Run. Li Run looked at Lin Yi in a difficult position, then looked at Lu Ziyu. He smiled bitterly and said, the two academies working together will benefit both sides, so of course I'm 100% in favor of it. However, this matter is of great importance, and I'm afraid it's not something a mere chancellor like me can decide on. At the very least, I have to ask for Headmaster Ling's permission. I hope that Master Lin and Headmaster Lu can forgive me. Logically speaking, this matter should be done as Chancellor Li suggested, and let Dean Ling personally make the decision. However, this opportunity cannot be missed. If we miss it, it will not be easy to get Zhuang Yifan to help us in the future. Lin Yi muttered to himself for a moment, then decided, how about this? I will overstep my authority and make the decision for the Morning Star Academy. Dean Ling is a righteous person. I believe he will not object. Thank you, Master Lin. Li Ren immediately agreed. As a mere chancellor, he did not have the right to decide on such an important matter that concerned the future of the academy, but Lin Yi was different, with his relationship with the Morning Star Academy's three magnates, as well as his various powerful backgrounds. Even if Ling Yuanqing knew, he would not blame him. Instead, he would only be grateful. In reality, forget about Lin Yi, even if it was his cheap disciple, Qing Danzi, who made the decision on the spot. Ling Yuanqing would not blame him. After all, he was the pillar of the academy. Moreover, This matter did not bring any harm to the Morningstar Academy, so only a fool would object. Since that's the case, then I'll go and refine the pills first. We can all go together during the banquet, Lin Yi said to the crowd, then stood up and carried the box of precious elixirs that Zhuang Yifan had brought and left, leaving the crowd to continue drinking tea and chatting, the two academies shaking hands. And making peace was a huge matter that involved many aspects. Lu Ziyu and Li Ren had to first discuss and come up with a draft. As for Hui Yudi, Wang Xinyan, and Huang Xiaotao, they had long since slipped away to have a private conversation. There were always endless topics between women, especially when they had Lin Yi in common. Arriving at the special alchemy room on the treasured ship, Lin Yi only adjusted his state of mind slightly, then impatiently started trying. This was his first time refining a mystic-grade elixir, so he was somewhat perturbed and nervous. However, after taking out the godly pesticide cauldron and installing the alchemy equipment sent by Han Jingjing, Lin Yi's state of mind immediately calmed down. Being as calm as an ancient well was the minimum requirement for alchemy. If his state of mind was not calm, then there was no need to even open the furnace, since the chances of success were zero. This alchemy was different from the past. In the past, Lin Yi only needed to follow the instructions on the tablet and continuously input the corresponding strength of qi. However, this time there was an additional step, and that was to control the attribute of qi. The solid earth pill only required metal, wood, and earth attribute qi. If Lin Yi were to bring in 8 attributes at once, then even if he was lucky enough to succeed, the final product would not be the authentic solid earth pill. This step itself was not difficult. For those real mystic-grade alchemists, the difficulty of this step was how to perfectly simulate the other attributes of qi. However, Lin Yi did not have this problem at all. He only needed to control the 3 attributes of qi, and everything else was a fool's operation. Everything seemed to be going very smoothly. Lin Yi did not feel the difficulty of refining a mystic-grade elixir at all. From beginning to end, he seemed to be able to do it with ease, but in the end, when he opened the godly pesticide cauldron, there was only a pile of residue inside. Failed. This result was not unexpected. Lin Yi had been mentally prepared for this. So he only used 1 set of materials this time, but the problem was that with his alchemy experience, he did not know where he failed at all. Fortunately, there was an alchemy artifact peripheral. After experiencing the first failure, the computer began to automatically correct the alchemy curve just now. At first glance, the new alchemy curve seemed to be the same as the original, but if you looked closely, you would find that many details had been fine-tuned. For these fine-tuning made by the computer, Lin Yi had a completely incomprehensible expression. After all, he was not a serious mystic-grade alchemist who rushed up step by step. He could not understand why these fine-tuning appeared, let alone what effect such fine-tuning would have. However, Lin Yi did not need to fully understand it. He only needed to input qi according to the computer's instructions. As long as there was no deviation in this point, everything else was the business of the godly pesticide cauldron. He could not intervene at all. In theory, the godly pesticide cauldron with the peripherals was actually an omnipotent alchemy artifact, because even if it failed the first time, it could be continuously optimized by adjusting the alchemy curve. If the second time failed, there would be a third time, and if the third time failed, there would be a fourth time, until the alchemy finally succeeded. Chapter 49-42. Zhuang Yifan was the president of the Golden Rank Academy Alliance and a great master in the late stage of the Earth-opening realm. Even so, he only managed to gather 30% of the materials. The godly armament cauldron could be used 10,000 times, but the materials were only enough for 3 tries. This was the reality. If he couldn't succeed after 3 tries, It would be equivalent to declaring the alchemy a failure. Because Zhuang Yifan provided a little more materials, Lin Yi had a little more than 2 sets left. He didn't dare to put all of them in at once. Even if the alchemy curve had been adjusted, no one knew if it would succeed before the second result came out, if he needed to make further adjustments. And he was stupid enough to throw in all the materials at once, it would be a joke. Lin Yi thought about it and put in half of the materials in his hand. Then he struck while the iron was hot and began the second attempt. The success or failure didn't have much to do with him. It all depended on the godly armament cauldron. This time, the alchemy process was obviously more complicated than the first time. There were a few strange sounds from time to time. Every time a sound was made, Lin Yi's heart sank a little. This was the rhythm of failure. However, when he finally opened the godly armament cauldron, he was stunned. There were 2 yellow pills lying inside. Without a doubt, they were the earth-solidifying pills. It turned out that the strange sounds weren't a sign of failure. It was the legendary saying that the road to happiness is strewn with setbacks. Han Jingjing's alchemy artifact was really amazing. It could even produce a mystic class first-level pill. It was even able to overproduce as usual. How could those high and mighty mystic class alchemists endure this? Lin Yi couldn't help but let out a long sigh of relief as he held the 2 solid earth pills in his hand. He'd be able to explain things to Zhuang Yifan now, and there wouldn't be any more unforeseen accidents. If he'd really failed, Zhuang Yifan might have gotten angry out of humiliation and done something unfavorable to him, and that'd be troublesome. While Lin Yi was refining, Bao Zhuliang and Su Kexing sneaked off the treasure ship while no one was paying attention. "Young Master Bao, are you sure you can borrow a flying spirit beast here?" Su Kexing asked as he followed behind Bao Zhuliang. "Of course, it's just a flying spirit beast. How could I not be able to borrow it?" Bao Zhuliang rolled his eyes at him. "But this is the Thunderous Plain Island. It is desolate and uninhabited, and there are no academies or main cities. Where are we going to rent a flying spirit beast?" Su Kexing asked in astonishment. "Who said anything about renting it? Why don't you just ask to borrow it from them? Don't forget that there's a branch of the Alliance here, and my father happens to know one of the higher-ups of the Alliance stationed here." "As long as I ask, borrowing a flying spirit beast is a small matter," Bao Zhuliang said proudly. "So that's how it is. As long as we can borrow a flying spirit beast, our plan will be half successful." Su Kexing's eyes lit up as he nodded. "All right, you didn't dare to say it on the boat because you were afraid that the walls might have ears. Now, you don't have to keep me guessing anymore. Tell me what the plan is." Bao Zhuliang couldn't wait to ask. "Young Master Bao, with our current strength, what do you think our chances of winning against Lin Fan are?" Su Kexing asked instead of answering. Bao Zhuliang's expression turned ugly as he said bitterly, "Lin Fan has already made a name for himself. He can challenge mountain opening stage giants by himself. Now, even Zhuang Yifan is on his side. The possibility of us killing him with just the 2 of us is not high. It's not just not high. Under normal circumstances, we wouldn't even have the chance." Su Kexing mercilessly shattered Bao Zhuliang's last bit of fantasy and said with certainty, "Young Master Bao, don't think that I'm trying to boost the morale of others and diminish our own. To be honest, we are no longer on the same level as Lin Fan. Even your father might not be able to do anything to Lin Fan. He might even be the one to blame. Even Zhuang Yifan, the head of the Alliance, was on Lin Yi's side. Bao Zhuliang's father was just an ordinary city lord. He was nothing compared to Zhuang Yifan. How could he win against Lin Yi?" Bao Zhuliang didn't say anything. Even if Su Kexing didn't say it, he would have guessed it himself. He didn't want to accept it, but he had to bow his head in the face of this cruel reality. If he did something stupid, not only would he not be able to defeat Lin Yi, but he'd also get himself into trouble. Then what do you think we should do? Just give up like this? Bao Zhuoyang said with a frown. He was still lusting after Wang Xinyan, and the feeling of being obsessed with her wasn't something any other girl could compare to. If he were to let her go now, he'd probably never be able to accept it. Plus, he'd lost to Lin Yi a few times before. It was a great humiliation to him. How could he just let it go like this? In fact, putting aside personal preferences and considering the pros and cons, stopping here is actually the best choice. Su Kesheng sighed. He glanced at Bao Zhuoyang's gloomy expression and said, "But I think young Master Bao will definitely not agree to it. In fact, even I don't want to admit defeat so easily. Otherwise, I wouldn't have suggested sneaking out." "All right, that's enough bullshit. Let's get down to business. You asked me to sneak out and borrow a flying spirit beast. What are you planning?" Bao Zhuoyang asked. The best choice Su Kesheng had mentioned wasn't even within his scope of consideration. "My plan is simple. Let's go to Ding City now." Su Kesheng said with a smile. "Ding City? Why are we going there?" Bao Zhuoyang paused, then reacted. "You're not going to complain to the ghost of death, are you?" "That's right. I'm going to complain to him." Su Kesheng nodded. The ghost of death they were talking about was Chang Lading's father, Zhang Zili's man. He was the mayor of Ding City, Chang Minggue. The ghost of death was a nickname that was very appropriate for this big boss of Ding City. Not only did it have the same sound as his name, but he was also a vengeful person who would pay with his life for the slightest offense. Countless people had died at his hands over small matters, and that was why he was called the Ghost of Death. Chapter 49-43. Bao Zhuoyang's concern was reasonable. After all, Chang Minggue would not give up no matter what. Why should the two of them get involved in this mess? It was better to hide far away and watch the tigers fight. After all, they could not afford to offend Lin Yi, let alone Chang Minggue. If they were to be targeted by either of them, both of them would be in deep trouble. If they behaved themselves and stayed in a good spot to watch the show, they might be able to witness a satisfying scene. "Young Master Bao, you're wrong. If we don't do anything, there's a high chance that we won't be able to see any good show." Su Kesheng shook his head. "How is that possible? The ghost for death won't let Lin Yi go." Bao Zhuoyang suddenly jumped up. "Indeed, he won't let Lin Yi go. But if he doesn't rush over immediately, Lin Yi will probably escape." Su Kesheng smiled helplessly. Just as he said before, the most rational choice right now was to give up. Otherwise, no matter what they did, they would more or less have to bear some risk. But then again, if the two of them did nothing, it would be unrealistic for them to sit on top of the mountain and watch the tigers fight like Bao Zhuoyang expected. Run away. Bao Zhuoyang was stunned. Only then did he realize that from Lin Yi's point of view, the best choice at the moment was to escape before Chang Minggue could react. As long as he escaped back to the North Island, Chang Minggue would not be able to do anything to him. After all, it was impossible for Chang Minggue to chase him all the way to the North Island. Not to mention whether he would go or not. Even if he did, it would be useless. The North Island was not a pushover. With a super big boss like Shanghai Tianhua in charge, would he dare to come looking for trouble? He would be looking for a beating. That's right. Lin Yi isn't a fool. Since he dared to attack Zhang Zili and Chang Lading, he must have calculated the ghost for death's revenge. That's why he only has two choices left. He can either find strong external help to block the attack, or he can escape. Su Kesheng analyzed. Now that you've put it that way, he really only has one option left, which is to run away. The life expiator ghost isn't someone to be trifled with. That Lin fellow will only die if he encounters him. Zhuang Yifan and the three Morning Star powerhouses might be able to deal with the life expiata ghost, but do they have such a close relationship with that Lin fellow? Usually they look harmonious, but once they encounter such a life-threatening situation, they will definitely stand by and watch. So, the one with the surname Lin can only run away. Bao Zhuoyang immediately came to a realization after being reminded like this. Exactly. I dare say that if the Ghost for Death wants to seek revenge on Lin Yi, his only chance is to do so on Thunderous Plains Island. Otherwise, once Lin Yi returns to the Morning Star Academy, even if the three Morning Star powerhouses aren't willing to fight to the death with the Ghost for his sake, they'll still be able to delay him and let him escape. Su Kexing's face was full of foresight. Even if that's the case, there's no need for us to specially go to Tripod City to complain, right? With such a huge incident happening, the Ghost for Death will definitely rush over immediately to denounce us. He can't possibly be patient and slowly negotiate through the official channels, right? Bao Zhuoyang said disapprovingly. No, it's the exact opposite. We have to go, and we have to go immediately. Su Kexing shook his head and said with certainty. Why? Bao Zhuoyang was stunned. If we don't go, who's going to report to the Ghost for Death? Right now, the people on the Tripod City Academy's ship, who are in charge, are all dead or alive. Zhang Zili, Chang Lading, and the two libationers are all lying on the ground. Right now, their ship is definitely in a mess. At this time, there's no way anyone would dare to step forward and report to the Ghost for Death. Whoever steps forward will be unlucky. Su Kexing laughed coldly and curled his lips. I reckon that by the time the Ghost for Death receives the last news, Lin Yi will have already escaped back to the northern island. What's the use then? Not bad, not bad. You're really smart, kid. If not for your reminder, I wouldn't have thought of all this. Bao Zhuoyang's eyes lit up as he praised. You flatter me, young Master Bao. I was just thinking a little too much. Although Su Kexing spoke modestly, his expression showed that he was enjoying it. If that's the case, then we can't delay any longer. We have to borrow a flying spirit beast to get to the Tripod City. Although the Tripod City isn't too far from here, if we want to see the Ghost for Death, we'll have to put in some effort. We can't delay for too long. If we wait for Lin Yi to escape back to the Morning Star Academy, then all our efforts will be in vain, Bao Zhuoyang said impatiently. Yes, there's no time to lose. Let's get there as soon as possible. Su Kexing nodded repeatedly. The two of them found the Alliance Division, and Bao Zhuoyang showed up, successfully borrowing a flying spirit beast. They immediately set off for Cauldron City. From the beginning to the end, the people of Morning Star Academy didn't notice the two of them sneaking away. They were all talking about Lin Yi, and no one had the time to pay attention to them. When the sky darkened, Lin Yi appeared in front of everyone in a relaxed manner. He smiled and said, "Let's go eat." Wang Xinyan and the others looked at each other and smiled. Seeing Lin Yi's expression, they knew that they had succeeded. They didn't ask any more questions and crowded around him as they walked towards the Alliance branch. Li Ren brought a group of Morning Star Academy disciples and followed behind them. As for Lu Ziyu, she went back to call the Morning Pride Academy disciples. Because of Wu Yuri, she was leading the team as the vice dean. At this time, the Alliance had already notified that the celebration banquet would be held in advance at the Thunder Plain Island Alliance branch. All Academy disciples could attend the banquet, although this was against the rules, and not only were the Academy disciples who were still training unable to attend, even the Academy disciples who had left early had no chance of attending the banquet. However, Zhuang Yifan was the chairman of the Alliance. With his position and strength, he could do whatever he wanted. He didn't need to discuss it with anyone. If you couldn't attend, you could only blame your own bad luck. Would you dare to complain to Zhuang Yifan? Moreover, although the banquet was held in a hurry, most of the academies were present, so it wasn't too outrageous. The Alliance branch wasn't far from the pier. It was a rather grand and magnificent building complex. Although it was far from luxurious, it looked extremely sturdy from the outside. It was enough to deal with all kinds of natural and man-made disasters. This didn't feel like an Alliance branch, but more like a heavily guarded secret base. Chapter 49-44. But what surprised Lin Yi and the others was that the other academies that had arrived earlier did not enter. Instead, they were all stuck outside the door and were all discussing among themselves. Could it be that something happened? Lin Yi was slightly taken aback, but before he could ask, the crowd in front of him suddenly opened up a path. Then Zhuang Yifan personally welcomed him with a smile. Master Lin is indeed a man of his word. Come, come, come. Please come in. The people from the other academies were in an uproar. Although most of them had heard about what had happened this morning, they had only heard about it and had never seen the person himself. This was the first time they had seen Lin Yi, the ruthless person who had challenged Zhang Ziji. What surprised them even more was that Zhuang Yifan, as the president of the Alliance, not only did not punish Lin Yi, he even put down his status and personally came out to welcome him. For this reason, he did not hesitate to block the entrance of so many academies. This was simply the treatment of a superior VIP. Just who was this Lin Yi? Lin Yi did not know whether to laugh or cry. These people were blocked outside because of him. Zhuang Yifan had really put in a lot of effort to get him to help with alchemy. Thank you for coming out to greet me personally, Chairman Zhuang. I'm really flattered. Lin Yi said with a smile. You are too kind. This is the most basic etiquette for a mystic class alchemist. Not to mention in the yellow class C, even in the mystic class C, would be the same. Master Lin need not be modest. Zhuang Yifan smiled as he invited Lin Yi into the already prepared banquet hall. Only after they entered the hall could the other academies finally follow them in. The huge banquet hall was filled with hundreds of tables. Zhuang Yifan personally led Lin Yi to sit at the main table in the middle. Only then did the others find their own seats. This seat was not something that could be casually occupied, as there were clear rules regarding which tables belonged to which academies. Elite academies, like the Leidong Academy, were arranged to sit at the main table, and their every move was closely watched. As for the smaller academies, they were directly lined up behind the main entrance, and not even a single person could be seen, let alone any sense of existence. However, even a top academy like the Leidong Academy could only get close to the main table. It was impossible for them to occupy a seat at the main table. There were only 8 seats at the main table, and they had always been reserved for Zhuang Yifan and the other higher-ups of the Academy Alliance. Other than that, only a small number of Academy representatives were allowed to share a table with them. In the past, if the headmaster of the Leidong Academy had personally come, he would have been given a seat. However, this time it was only the leader of the libation team. How could he be qualified to share a table with Zhuang Yifan? Hundreds of people around the main table were watching every move. Lin Yi was undoubtedly the focus of their discussion. Their faces were filled with envy and jealousy. It was a great honor to be able to sit next to Zhuang Yifan in the golden class waters. Even the headmasters of most academies didn't have the right to do so, let alone an unknown young man like Lin Yi. But compared to this, the other people who took their seats at the main table made everyone's jaws drop. Wang Xinyan, Huang Xiaotao, Hui Yudi, Lu Ziyu, Li Run. Who the hell were these people? The precious seats that belonged to the upper echelons of the alliance were all taken up by people who had nothing to do with them. This wasn't some celebration party for the path of a tycoon. It was a family banquet. Was Zhuang Yifan an idiot? With this seating arrangement, the other academies wouldn't even be able to mingle in the foreseeable future. Lin Yi would be the one calling the shots in the future, and the other academies would have no choice but to stand on the sidelines. Everyone was discussing this in private, but they didn't dare show the slightest bit of dissatisfaction. Even Wang Jianxing from the Leidong Academy, who was sitting not far away, only dared to look askance at Lin Yi, not daring to voice his anger. Thanks to Lin Yi, he'd already been beaten senseless by Lin Yi before he could break through to the profound ascension realm, resulting in his failure. The once insufferably arrogant leader of the four lords of the nascent soul realm was now nothing more than trash. He didn't have the slightest bit of the arrogant aura of a proud son of the heavens. This former genius was completely ruined. Lin Yi didn't even look at this kind of defeated opponent, but the whispers of the surrounding people made him a little uncomfortable. Zhuang Yifan's arrangement was indeed a little too capricious. In order to make space for people like him, the other higher-ups of the alliance were forcefully thrown to another table with just one sentence. This president of the alliance was so arbitrary that people didn't know what to say. However, this was also a manifestation of his powerful strength. Even if he sat in the position of president of the alliance, in the end, the power in his hands still depended on his strength to fight for it. If someone with ordinary strength became the president, even if he didn't become a mere figurehead, it would still be difficult to intimidate so many Golden Stage academies. As for Zhuang Yifan, with his terrifying strength of the late stage of Earth opening, there was no one here who could compete with him. The power of the president of the alliance was naturally tyrannical to the extreme in his hands. Basically, he could do whatever he wanted, and no one dared to say anything. They could only obediently follow his orders. Master Lin, I'll leave the matter of alchemy to you this time. Cheers, cheers. Zhuang Yifan didn't pay any attention to the surprised looks of the people around him. The president of the alliance was putting himself in such a low position without any reservation at all. This guy was really unique. President Zhuang, you're too polite. Lin Yi followed suit and drained his drink. Master Lin, I know you'll definitely need to rest well during this period, so I've specially prepared a side courtyard here in the branch. The environment is absolutely unique, and I believe you'll be satisfied. What do you think, Master Lin? Zhuang Yifan suggested in a very sincere tone. Oh, upon hearing this, Lin Yi looked at him playfully. Zhuang Yifan seemed to be doing this painstakingly, and his attitude was also impeccably sincere. However, his intentions were not as simple as it seemed. It was obvious that he was afraid that Lin Yi would slip away, so he wanted to use this method to put him under house arrest in the alliance branch. Zhuang Yifan smiled and looked at Lin Yi. He was the president of the alliance, a mighty late-stage Earth opening expert, and he was putting himself in such a low position in front of a junior like Lin Yi. His goal was, of course, for the Earth consolidation pill. For this, it was necessary to take some precautions. After all, they had never met before. Who knew if this young man with such a powerful background could be relied on? You're tuning in to the Mystic Fist YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.